Chair Gall, you may begin.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Welcome to the Monday, February 13th, 2023 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held using the Zoom webinar format. So you will see that the Planning Commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments during the meeting. You may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. You may also send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or an applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We ask that you also turn on your video at that time so we can have more clear communication, simulating the experience we would have if we were meeting in person. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. So agenda item number 2 is roll call. Let the record note that all members of our commission are present this evening. Agenda item number 3 is the approval of the minutes. We have meeting minutes to approve this evening from the Monday, January 23rd, 2023 regular Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments, changes, or discussions regarding the minutes?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from February 13th, 2023.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Camerado and a second by Vice Chair Pfaff. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Camerado.
Aye.
Commissioner Horan.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Pfaff.
Aye.
And Chair Gall.
Aye, so the motion passes 7-0-0. We will move on then to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Only one item, item 9B, 1420 Cabrillo Avenue has been continued for further review by planning staff. So will not be heard this evening.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any recusals tonight?
I'll be recusing from items 8A and 8B for financial reasons, as well as item 9D.
Okay, thank you. Any other recusals? No? All right, then I am going to move on to agenda item number 5, public comments, non-agenda. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and we ask you to please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any item that is not on our agenda?
We have no public comment emails, but there is a hand raised by Geeta Dev.
Okay.
So I will allow her to speak in just a second here. Okay,
Hello.
Geeta, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Gall and Planning Commissioners. My name is Geeta Dev, and I am a member of the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. We had occasion to talk to Mr. Gardner some time ago about the life sciences labs and biotech, which is going in Burlingame and also in a number of other communities up and down the Bay Area. And one of the things that he mentioned, and others have too, is he did ask us what would be most useful would be to know what other cities that have gone before us have done in terms of any rules, ordinances, and so forth. In all our conversations with different public officials, that has been a recurring question. So we did take it to heart, and we have, in fact, a webinar, which is on March the 2nd at 2 p.m. And I have sent you all a notice of that webinar. We did put together a team of experienced professionals in the industry and in academia, and researched considerably as to what other cities have done. So the webinar, in fact, will have experts who can speak to both what city councils may look at, what public safety may look at, and biosafety. So to address, the three different levels of biosafety that our cities are considering, and the fact that they are all extremely different buildings, though they may all be clustered under life sciences. They have very different requirements and very different consequences. So I encourage you all. I hope you will all attend the webinar. And thank you, Mr. Gardner. I also want to mention that another issue that we would like very much for the Planning Commission to take on is to look again at your bird safe design guidelines, with all the buildings going up along the Bay Shore, a lot of them being glazed buildings. We are quite concerned about whether there shouldn't be some more guidance to building developers and companies about the effects of buildings with their light at night on the wetlands and the ecological systems. So we hope that you will have the opportunity to take a harder look at bird safe design and light at night for all the wonderful buildings that you're building along the Bay Shore and the industrial district behind it. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you on these two issues.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who'd like to speak on any non-agenda item?
No other hands raised. Nope.
No other hands. All right. And we will move on to agenda item number 6, study items, of which we have none, followed by the consent calendar, which also I believe we have none. So we'll move to regular action. Let's see. All right, so agenda item 8A, 2704 Hillside Drive. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communication regarding this project?
Chair Gull, I did just want to note that Commissioner Camarado has recused from the site.
Yes, okay. All right. Then let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
This application is for design review for a new 2-story single unit dwelling and detached garage. The proposed project is an interior lot with an existing 2-story split level house with an attached garage. The applicant is proposing to demolish all structures on site and build a new 2-story house with a detached 1-car garage. The total floor area would be 3,201 square feet, where 3,264 square feet is the maximum allowed. This includes 139 square feet front porch exemption. The new dwelling would contain 4 bedrooms. At least 2 parking spaces are required, one of which must be covered. The proposed detached garage provides 1 covered space, and 1 uncovered space is provided in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. At the design review study meeting, the commission referred this project to one of the city's design review consultants. Please refer to the design reviewer's analysis and attachments to the staff report. The design reviewer supports approval of the project as proposed. That concludes my summary. If there are any questions of staff, I'm available at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? I do not see any hands from the commission. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to open the public hearing. With the applicant, please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Anna Felver. I'm with TJH, the applicant for this project. And I did have a short presentation just to add a few highlights. If I can share my screen real quick. So the last time that this was before you was September 26th. For the image that's on the left-hand side of the screen, it was a traditional style, and comments were made about the design and scale not fitting the neighborhood, that the elevations were tall, flat, and boring. There need to be some more articulation, maybe a belly band that wraps around, maybe some more pushing and pulling. Windows at the second floor were too close to the eaves, seemed squished. A comment about the front door, maybe considering it to be 42 inches in width for better proportions. The electrical chase to be not tacked onto the exterior, but within the wall of the building. And then also a little bit more information about the sloping lot. This rendering on the left hand is our new proposal. So we worked with the assigned planning consultant and modified the design to a more minimalist Tudor style, so modern Tudor style. Stucco body, wood trim, wood window trim at the header and sill. You can see there's a little bit of a stucco profile at the eaves, and that's to go along and align with the Tudor style. We've pushed out the porch a little bit from the living space, added a gable on top to frame that entry and make it a little bit more substantial. The den area over to the right side, we've modified that. We widened it to take away the jog that was there, try to create a nice eave line instead of jogging the eave lines. And then, of course, above, stacking that gable above. The roof pitch has also been increased to an 812 to align with the Tudor style. And the main roof is a hip roof to reduce the massing, but again, go along with the style. And the windows were dropped to 7 feet at the second floor. This is to move it away from that eave line. And then they've been sized appropriately with the new massing that has evolved with this style. There's been, on the other side that I'll show you, there's more pop outs, belly bands, recesses, even a chimney added to create articulation along the sides. The front door, we put, instead of having one side light and a front door, we made this symmetrical, flanking windows from a separate 42-inch door unit. This would be a fiberglass door, fiberglass windows. The grids would be SDLs, the spacer bars, the beveled profile. And then I'll show you on the other slide the electrical chase being within the wall, and then also talk about the sloping lot. The 2D drawings, the elevations are before you. At the right top image, which happens to be the last elevation, you can see that chimney that was added to break up the massing. The porch was pushed to the edge, so now the eaves line up with the other first story roof line, and frames that tower piece at the stair. So you can see a bit more pushing and pulling and articulation on that side. You can also see at the eaves, the second floor, and then as well as the porch, that little profile detail, bunch of lines in there, but it shows the profile at the front. The rear elevation, instead of being one flat massing, there's more pushing and pulling. There's a rear porch that pulls out from the living space, the 2-story element, and then there's another space that's pushed back even further with that hipped roof. And then the right side, we have a pop out at the second floor, has corbels underneath, and a belly band that follows that pop out along the rest of the massing to separate the floors. And you can see how tall the roof line is now. The detached garage was revised to match. So same roof pitch, stucco body, the wood trim details, wood garage door, and then the plate height has been dropped to 9 feet to grade. This way we're not asking or requesting a minor use permit, and still within being compliant with height. And then this is the proposed grading plan. It was in the packet and it's the middle. On the left edge, there's a proposed retaining wall to hold up the higher grade that's on the left-hand side. The grade will drop down on the other side of that retaining wall, and then it'll slope a bit to flatten out to where to be prior to the house foundation. And then at the front, it does slope up. So the landscape will slope gradually up, and then there's hardscape that steps up to address that slope. And then a little bit about colors and materials, because I know these were comments before, using off-white and gray trim, composition shingles. We use exterior lighting, dark sky compliant, so downward lighting. I know it's important. The front door is called out as fiberglass. Garage door called out as wood, and we have a spec for that as well. And then the windows, again, SDLs with a spacer bar. They'll be Marvin Ultrix windows. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant? Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yeah, it's just so that I understand what's going on. I'm looking at the page A 3.1. It's showing the left elevation, I guess, of the left side. And I'm just looking at the second floor, trying to understand why the, I guess the wall looks like there's so much space above the windows. There's probably reason, so you can tell me how that happened.
So we have the plate height where the wall where the chimney is, there's a certain plate height there. And then as the roof slopes up, then that wall that's further back is going to have a higher plate height. So it has the same roof line.
Got it.
Unless we did a longer overhang, but too much of an overhang is problematic in buildings. So kept the same eave line and kept the same plate.
Okay, thank you for explaining.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah. Is there a basement in the existing house?
Hillside, yes. I believe there's a basement in the existing house. We are removing or filling in.
So you're going to fill that in and do a slab on grade, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know, does that basement have a sump pump? And, I'm concerned on the hillside still about the drainage, particularly with what we've gone through the last month, on what's going to happen from the uphill guy into your property and what you're going to then send down to the downhill property. And what I'm looking at on the grading and drainage plan is I'm seeing fences with 2x12 retaining boards below grade, but yet I'm seeing, 2.5, 3 feet worth of grade difference from one side of the property to the other. So I'm not sure if you guys have gotten far enough along on that part with how much you're trying to flatten out this lot.
So we were trying to accommodate that with the retaining wall. I wish I had a section cut of it. It's kind of shown in the elevation conceptually, as we haven't gone through the buildable drawings yet, but that grade is much higher, a couple feet higher on the left-hand side with that retaining wall. And then our grade is a little bit lower, and then it slopes down and then flattens out. So there's a few things going on to capture that height because it is much taller. And so knowing that retaining wall will be there with underneath the fence, so the fence will be built on top of it, and then lower than that and sloped.
Well,
and then
it
flatten out.
depends if you're building a retaining wall or whether you're just putting the fence posts and doing 10-foot fence posts and sticking up 6 feet above grade and doing 2 feet worth of 2x12s to retain the soil from your neighbor or retaining your soil. And I'm a little concerned about that because one, water and soil and weeds leak through those 2x12s. It happened to me at my house, and it just changes the flow of water from one property to the next. This may be too early for this, but my problem is I'm not sure, given the complexity of this site, who's going to ask that question when. And on behalf of your neighbors on both sides, and you guys really, because like I said, it's going to happen to you from the guy on the left side, and it's going to happen to the guy on the right side because of you. So, you know, you want to figure out how you're going to control that water flow and the movement of all that soil. Because there is, you know, there's a good 3 feet of grade difference between the left and the right side on your property alone. So, okay.
I wish I could speak more to it. I do
No.
know that on all our sites, we drain it towards the front. So trying to get it away from any rear.
I agree.
Yeah, so.
And I get it, because I had I had a back to front drainage on my lot too, but this one's a side to sides, and it even humps in the middle. So you've got a complex site.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? No. Then do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
There are no
Not seeing
public,
any.
yeah, sorry, Kevin, no public comment emails. I'm keeping track of those today, and I don't see any hands raised either.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments on this project? Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yeah, I can't speak to the drainage. I'm certainly, I trust my fellow commissioners on to make a judgment if that's going to be a problem. But beyond what I mentioned about a little bit the blank wall, and maybe it's just me, I think it's very well done. I think you listened, I really, really appreciate, to me, it's a day and night change from the initial submission. So thank you. And I also wanted to say I appreciate a very detailed planting plan, good choices, and should really set in nicely. So I think nicely done.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, this one's taken a little longer. This was one of the first ones that was submitted in the group. And I think that the time and the effort put into it is turning out to be a much better product. And I appreciate the effort put in by the applicant and their team to listen to us and put together a project that I think is going to look much better in this location than it was going to. My thing is, I see that it's the hill slope and the drainage is something, but it's not something that I think stops it here. It's just something that needs to be resolved through the building permit process. And I hope that both parties on either side can work together on making sure that the changes made by this, by the regrading, doesn't negatively impact. The neighbor on the left has a garage that's on the property line. So if they're changing the grading back there, that's going to affect their garage. And similarly, there's 2 to 3 feet of grade difference between them and their right side neighbor. So I hate to see soil and other things dumping onto their property too. And or the existing cinder block wall being used as a retaining wall, which it may or may not be designed for. So those things really need to have some thought put into them so that it's not a disaster downstream during construction when you're trying to close it up quick and get it back onto the market. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Say.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I wanted to just also acknowledge that the applicant for listening to all of our comments thoroughly, repeating them to us at the beginning of the presentation, all of our comments and how you have addressed them. I think this is a really good example of how the design review process works. And this house is going to fit so much better in that neighborhood, just like Commissioner Schmidt just said. And if there aren't any further comments, I would move this project to action, approval. I move that we approve this project.
I would second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Say and a second by Commissioner Schmidt. And is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any hands. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Horan,
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Foth,
Aye.
Chair Gall.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-1-0. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $745, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. We'll move on now to agenda item 8B, 132 Occidental. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? I don't see any hands, so let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Chair Gall, I did want to note too that Commissioner Camerado is still recused on this.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
This application is for design review for a new 2-story single-unit dwelling and detached garage. The subject property is located within the Burlingame Park number 2 subdivision. A historic resource evaluation was prepared for the property and concluded that it does not appear to be eligible for listing in the national or California registers. The proposed project is an interior lot with an existing 1-story house with a detached garage. The applicant is proposing to demolish all structures on site and build a new 2-story house with a detached 1-car garage. The total floor area would be 3,547 square feet, where 3,548 square feet is the maximum allowed, and this includes the 79 square feet front porch exemption. The new dwelling would contain 4 bedrooms. At least 2 parking spaces are required, one of which must be covered. The proposed detached garage provides 1 covered space and 1 uncovered space is provided in the driveway. All other zoning code requirements have been met. At the design review study meeting, the commission referred this project to one of the city's design review consultants. Please refer to the design reviewer's analysis in the attachments to the staff report. The design reviewer supports approval of the project as proposed. That concludes my summary. If there are any questions of staff, I'm available at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? I don't see any hands. I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Hello, Anna Felver with Thomas James Homes, and I have a quick presentation for 132 Occidental. Share my screen. Again, this project was last before you in September of last year. Another traditional home that we had previously proposed, which is the image on the left-hand side. Again, comments were design and scale do not fit the neighborhood, speaking to more plaster and stucco, large expanses on the side elevations, the house seeming wide at the frontage than usually proposed, the low roof at the front not working and looking to break that up somehow. The porch is too small, large stairwell window facing the left side to be reduced. And then again, with the windows are too large. And then again, differences in our renderings and plans to be consistent, and regarding our minor use permit, that would not be approvable with the current garage plate height. We worked with an assigned planning consultant and have revised the project to be modified to an arts and crafts bungalow style. We found this bungalow style to be seen further down the street and thought it would be a great style to apply to this home. This has a stucco body with a horizontal wood siding in the gable as accents. And then we have, you can see corbel and knee braces, and a wood pop out at the front, wood trim around the windows and doors, wood posts at the front. And we have roof pitches that have been increased to 7 and 12. What we've done with the massing in the front is we've moved the ADU portion out front and put a gable roof above it, and simplified the edge. There's not a bunch of jogs. It's one massing for the ADU with that nice wooden pop out. And then the porch is a little further back from the ADU. It's a little bit wider. It frames with 2 posts framing the entry door and its side lights. And then above, we have 2 gables. We've reduced the loft at the right-hand side. So you see that it steps in on the right. That reduces the larger gable and the massing as seen at the 2nd floor. We've reduced it about around 3 feet at the 2nd floor. And then large expanses on the side elevations. We've added pop outs and belly bands and done a little bit of pushing and pulling to make sure we can add more articulation. And then speaking to the windows at the stair, I'll show you on the next slide that we've added a wood pop out there as well. It speaks to the front elevation and provides some articulation along a wall that would be very tall usually. And we reduced the windows at that location as well. And then window headers are dropped to 7 feet, and sizes of the windows have been resized to be more proportionate with the massing, the new massing. Next slide shows the 2D elevations. You can see at the top right corner, the right elevation showing that ADU portion, and then how it steps, it's stepping back towards the front and then steps towards the setback line, breaking up that tower element we previously had. There's a gable above where the loft is that's several feet back. Then we have a pop out further down the elevation at the 2nd floor, has the same gable treatment, the corbels and knee braces, the corbels underneath the pop out, the belly band, helps break out the massing. And then at the rear, we have the same elements applied there, and there's articulation, as you can see the pushing and pulling there. And then the left elevation, you can see as we come along that 2nd floor, we've pushed out a few elements and pulled back to break up that long massing. And then we've created 2 roof lines to break up the 1st and 2nd stories. And then the stair area, reducing those windows, creating a pop out that goes along with the style at that edge. The detached garage we revised to match the main house, the pitch, increased roof pitch, the stucco with the horizontal wood treatment at the gable and the corbel and knee braces, proposing a wood garage door, and then wood trim around the windows and door. And then the plate height has been modified to 9 feet so that we are not requesting that minor use. Colors and materials on this project is a white with a brown wood trim color, and then a brown composition shingle, roof shingle to align with that color scheme. And exterior lighting, we're proposing the dark sky compliant downward light. And the front door with the 2 side lights is proposed to be the fiberglass by Masonite. And then we're proposing a garage door that's wood, and then window frames, the SDLs with the spacer bar and the grid profile to be bevels. And that would be by Marvin, the Ultrix fiberglass windows. Thank you for listening tonight, and let me know if you have any questions. Our team is here to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, just one question on the light on the side elevation that is for the ADU door. Is that using the same exterior light fixture that you're showing on your color page, or is it going to be different in comparison to then your 2D elevation?
So the 2D is showing a concept with a cap over it, but we have our color board is selecting the product that we will be using all throughout all elevations that have exterior
Okay.
lighting. So it would be the color board would be the one that we would be
Right.
choosing.
The elevation looks like a jelly jar, which could, or, may or may not meet our light fixture, but the one on the one on this page looks like it would be fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, Vice Chair Foth.
Oh, yeah, it's just a quick clarification. So pretty much on under all the roofs, or most of them, you have the knee braces, and you have band that goes across and hits not really sure if it's flush on the house, or it's running kind of laying on the knee braces. At any rate, if I'm looking at my line drawings on all of them, they don't seem to, the horizontal band does not seem to continue the entire width to the bottom of it. So I think it looks strange, and I don't know, unless your wood is actually has a more of a 3D and is laying on top. I'm not like, I think it would look better if the band would actually continue to the whole way across do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the reason architecturally for that, their decision and recommendation on that was to pull it off, because you usually have it at the corner when you have, I guess, windows that would be lower. The plate is lower, and bringing those knee braces to the corners would bring the trim lower. And then that way the trim is going to be closer to your windows. And we're trying to provide space between the window header and the trim above, which was a concern, another comment that was provided. So bringing it off the corner and pulling it up allows more room between wood trim pieces.
I'm well, maybe I'm not exactly sure we're talking about the same thing, but it's okay. Maybe somebody else sees it, that maybe I'm just not seeing right. But I guess the piece that the banding that I'm looking at that's going across the corbels, is it laying flat on the building, or is it turned on its side and laying on across the knee braces, the corbels? Do you know?
Oh,
what I mean?
okay. Yes, the trim between the two corbels and knee braces. Okay. Yes, that part is on the stucco. It projects out from the stucco wall, but it's attached to the stucco wall. It's not floating out between the two corbels, if that's what you're asking.
That is what I'm asking,
Okay.
but why then is it not continuing? I mean, it's not very far. It's probably 6 inches on either side. Why does it then not continue to, I mean, it would be logical, I would think, if it's on the stucco, to continue all the way to the corner. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So that,
it looks to me like a mistake, and it happens all over on all of the details, but I don't know, maybe it's just my opinion, but
I think it's because of the wrapping. So when you take it to the corner and to wrap the other side, it would just be a little small piece of trim that would wrap the other side. So it could go to the corner, but it would be odd if it was missing that 2-inch trim piece, or it would just be a 1/2 inch, and that would be an awkward trim piece to have underneath the eave. Or it could just stop and not continue along the eave, but that's why they stopped it where it's at, because it has a nice clean trim spot to stop.
okay, well, I said it, so that's the only thing I could I wanted to ask about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? No, then do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
There are no public comment emails, but there is a hand raised from David Pocket. So bring him in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to I'm Dave Pocket with the Vicini and Lagoni Architects. And I just wanted to try and explain a little more on that trim. The corbels are coming out from the wall itself. So the trim is going from from beam to beam, the outlooker. So that's why it's not continuing around the corner. And it cleans that up a little, because if it did go around the corner, it also cuts into the double fascia. So it's a little cleaner the way, and the siding is all controlled in that space.
Okay, thank you. I that I didn't understand if it had a dimension or not, if it was flat. So thank you, that helps.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, and I see Amalia, you have your hand up?
Yes, there was an email received from one of the adjacent neighbors that we did email the planning commission, but we're going to read it out loud just in case not all commissioners received that email. Pull it up real quick. Sorry, I'm having. This email is from Jem Walsh. My wife Denise met with you yesterday to discuss the pending situation regarding the property at 132 Occidental Avenue. I know that the topic of new fencing was part of the information that you shared with her. For the record, I wanted to inform you of the existing conditions on our side of the property adjacent to 132. Prior to our moving into our home at 128 Occidental Avenue in 1993, the previous owner had replaced a single pedestrian door exit, which leads to a concrete walkway and which parallels our house from the street to our backyard. He replaced the single door pedestrian door with a double sliding glass doors. At the same time, he also built a wooden deck walkway that you stepped out onto when exiting through the new double sliding doors. That deck is approximately 22 feet long and 37 inches wide. It also has 4 down steps at both ends of the deck walkway. Those stairs are both approximately 52 inches in depth. The reason I mention this is that the deck he built is anchored to both my house and to the existing fence, which will be torn down. When the fence is taken down, it will eliminate the deck, which now serves as the only means of exit from our house other than the front door, which is located on the other side of our house. As I said above, I wanted this information on the record as the permit approval process continues. Thank you for keeping us advised and updated. Sincerely, Jen Walsh.
Okay, thank you. Anna, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, we responded to Jim and Denise about this condition. Like to hear this usually earlier, but always before fence installation, we do coordinate with the adjacent neighbors. And we want to make sure that we're coordinating on, is a new fence going to be installed on the property line? Do they want to keep the remaining fence? Are there conditions that we need to look out for? This would be one that we definitely want to coordinate with them on and make sure that we're not impacting their deck by any means. Also, their deck shouldn't be held up by the fence, but that's neither here nor there. We want to make sure that we're not impacting their property by any means. So we have reached out and we'll continue to coordinate with them throughout this process and make sure that we're not replacing the fence without their approval and without them being on the same page with us.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who'd like to speak on this item? I don't see any hands. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments on this project? Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah. I was thinking a little bit more about what Vice Chair Pfaff brought up and then the response, and I think it's fine, but I think that when you look three-dimensionally at those corners, you're going to find out that you're going to have a board with vent holes in it between the rafters going up into the attic. So you're already going to have a wood piece that's going, into the page. And I think if you align the bottom of the band trim with the bottom of that piece, that's your wraparound. And it really does actually probably work that way. So I don't know. It can probably work either way, but I think that there is a way to finish that to the edge and not have it look like just a piece of wood trim between the knee braces. But other than that, I commend the applicant and the team again. This was another one that I thought, the original didn't fit at all with where they were going. And I think that they listened well and made a good transition on this one. And I find it very approvable. So good job.
Thank you. Commissioner Haran. Oh, Commissioner Lowenthal, sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I completely agree with Commissioner Schmidt. I think it's a nice 180 from what we were shown last time around. I think it will fit the neighborhood very nicely. Craftsman bungalow, I like that as well. So unless there's any other comments, I would move to approve per the staff plan.
I'd second.
Okay, and the second was by Commissioner Schmidt. Okay,
Yes,
so we
sir.
have a motion by Commissioner Lowenthal, second by Commissioner Schmidt. Is there any discussion on the motion? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fox,
Aye.
Chair Gall.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-1-0, and action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $745, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. So we will move on now to agenda item 9A. This is a design review study item, and it is 2615 Hillside Drive. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communication regarding this project?
And Chair Gull, I did want to note that Commissioner Camarado is back.
It's back.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, then let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to replace the existing one-story single-unit dwelling at 2615 Hillside Drive with a new two-story single-unit dwelling and new detached one-car garage. The applicant is requesting a special permit for building height where 34 feet 6 inches is proposed, where 30 feet is the maximum allowed without approval of a special permit. Staff notes that the lot slopes upwards approximately 7 feet from the front to the rear property line, and the main dwelling has a first floor finished floor that is 8 feet above the average top of curb. There are 2 trees on site, a pine and an oak, that are proposed to be removed. Neither of the trees are of protected size. There are 3 landscape trees proposed to be planted on the site, including 1 Japanese maple and 2 Caroline laurels, which fulfill the minimum landscaping requirement. The project includes a detached accessory dwelling unit that is attached to the proposed detached single-car garage and located in the rear yard. Review of the ADU application is administrative only and is not subject to Planning Commission review. Staff has determined that the ADU complies with the ADU regulations. In summary, the applicant is requesting design review for a new 2-story single unit dwelling and detached garage and a special permit for building height of 34 feet 6 inches, where 30 feet is the maximum allowed without a special permit. The applicant is in attendance to answer questions from the commission, but first I'm available for questions of staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? I see no hands, so I'm going to open the public hearing. With the applicant, please come forward, say your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project.
Yeah, hi. I was actually request to submit a color rendering. Can Kevin or Ruben put up the color rendering of this project?
James, did you submit it to the public comment email or do you remember
No,
who you submitted it to?
We actually submitted along with the latest revision to all the department comments. But anyway,
let me look for it while you're presenting it.
As the Commissioner Foff has it in her hands.
Yeah, we got it in our packet.
Okay, that's good. That's good because I was asked to submit a color rendering for all future second story addition or a brand new single family home in Burlingame. I don't know why, because I think all the actually read the plans and see what we try to propose. And this is very straightforward project, 2-story in the middle of 2-story on both sides, and we try to come up with something that fits in. And this special permit is very typical for a situation like this. So I really don't have anything to add. I'd like to answer any question you may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions of the applicant? Vice Chair Foff.
Yeah, I do. Since you submitted a rendering, and I realized we don't generally work from the renderings, but on your rendering, you have what looks like a birch tree near the driveway. And I thought, whoa, that looks pretty nice. It kind of helps the things set in because the maples are so small, the maple singular. And but it's not in your plan, and I understand that you have fulfilled the minimal requirement. However, I'd like to just comment, I think it looks better with the birch in here. And that's, oh, we're supposed to ask questions. Yeah, so did you?
We could definitely replace the tree with birch.
Yeah, okay, very nice. Thank you. That was all I had to ask you.
Thank you. Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. James, the rendering, I think it's looking straight on at the house. Is the front door centered between the posts, between those columns, as per your plan, or is it the rendering is off, or maybe it's a different vantage point?
The front door is between the two posts.
It's intended to be between the two columns?
Yes, correct.
And secondly, I find there's one area that looks a little odd to me. I'm trying to understand your roof plan. To the left of the upstairs, sorry, what is that room? Bathroom number 4, the one facing the street. So the roof continues to slope down. On your roof plan, you don't have an indicator that, I mean, I think I'm reading that this is a kind of a nested gable. And you're trying to have that one plane slope down over the bathroom and continue all the way over and across the den on the first floor.
Correct.
Would it, on your floor plan, there's no space there. I mean, there's no volume of space that you're utilizing. Like it's not like the bathroom extends underneath that that area to the left, under the roof next to the bathroom. Would it work just as well to just come straight down and not have to do this nested gable? I'm just trying to figure out how that roof works there. I'll hold my comments. I'm just wondering about that section. And I'm talking about this area right here.
Okay.
Can you see? Right here.
Right. Yeah, we actually tried a few times, you know, going back and forth with planning and because there's also another issue about 9-foot plate height. That if the downstairs den is over 9 foot, then we have to come back with a special permit for that. So, we're going back and forth, and we finally figured out it actually works because we have a cross section that shows that roof will come all down to the dam. Perhaps, you know, on the next medal we could include that.
Well, my question is, because I don't think you would lose anything in your cross section for the den. I'm just wondering if you can just, you know, at the end of the bathroom, basically there'd be a vertical wall from the front view.
Well, that wall actually will be internally.
Right, it's internal, but there's no space inside your floor plan for that.
Oh, I
That
see.
area. I'm just wondering if it
Oh,
was better to just terminate it and come straight down.
I see. Okay. I could definitely look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands. I had one question, James. Had you spoken with the neighbors and shared the plans with them?
No, because we didn't think, you know, the 2-story will be a problem.
Okay.
On this particular lot, they both have 2-story. And
Yeah.
besides, on our side elevation, we try not to have a large window facing theirs. Well, except, you know, one of the bedroom and the staircase. But I think, I mean, like always, we try to do our best to protect our neighbors' privacy when we design a 2nd story.
Yeah. Appreciate
No, we.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item?
There are no public comment emails, and I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments on this project? Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for the rendering, actually, because I think it actually helps quite a bit. You know, given that we were just looking at the house across the street and having the same issues of downhill slope, side to side, and all of that, I think that these drawings have handled it well. When you look at the elevations, they've clearly delineated the change in grade from side to side and how they're addressing that. So I think this is a good example of a good hillside set that really makes it easy to see the challenges in the site. So you know, I like the architecture and the way it addresses the area. I like the way it's working 3-dimensionally on the site. I have no issues with the height variance request. It seems very reasonable given the way this site works. So I could see this coming back on consent.
Okay, Commissioner Camerado.
I agree with Commissioner Schmidt. I think this is a nice looking project, and I'd like to see it move forward.
Okay, Commissioner Say.
I just wanted to reiterate, just to see if James could take a look at the one area that I was commenting on. That I think he said he would take a look at to the left of the bathroom upstairs. I think it might improve the roof plan and the front elevation a little bit, maybe even give the staircase a little exposure to some windows facing the street. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yeah, I think it's, I agree. I think it's nicely done. I can also understand the request for the height. I just would really like a birch or something, whatever that tree is. Maybe it's a little oak. I have no idea, but there's a significant tree in the front that I think really in the rendering, but not in the plans. I'd like to see that put in there.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd move that we bring the project back on regular action. So just in order to address a few of the comments.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Say, second by Commissioner Camerado. Any discussion on the motion? All right, then can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Horan,
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pfaff,
Aye.
and Chair Gall.
Aye, so motion passes 7-0-0, and this is not appealable. Moving on to, we have an item that's been continued, item 9B at 1420 Cabrillo, sorry. We will not be hearing that item tonight, so we'll move on to design review study item 9C, 1114 Grove Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we also ask that you turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding the project? No, then let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
The application is for design review and special permit for a new two-story single-unit dwelling with an attached garage. The proposed project is an interior lot with an existing one-story house with a detached garage. The applicant is proposing to demolish all structures on site and build a new two-story house with an attached two-car garage. The new dwelling would contain 3 bedrooms and at least 2 parking spaces are required, one of which must be covered. The new attached garage provides 2 covered spaces and 1 uncovered space is provided in the driveway. The total floor area would be 2,850 square feet, where 2,444 square feet is the maximum allowed, and this includes a 51 square feet front porch exemption. Because the proposed floor area exceeds the maximum allowed, the applicant is requesting a variance for floor area ratio. In addition to design review and special permit for the new house, attached garage, and the request for a floor area ratio variance, the applicant is also requesting the following. Lot coverage variance, 1,964 square feet, or 46.8% of the lot area is proposed, where 1,680 square feet or 40% of the lot area is the maximum allowed. A special permit for first story plate height, a 9-foot 6-inch first floor plate height is proposed, where 9 feet is the maximum allowed. And a special permit for encroachment into the declining height envelope along the right side elevation by 48 square feet. All other zoning code requirements have been met. That concludes my summary. If there are any questions of staff, I'm available at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? No, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Chair Gall, looks like there's a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Haran.
Yeah, thank you. Am I reading the floor plans correct that there's no living room or dining room or anything other than a kitchen and a hallway in the main house? And is there any code associated with not having a living room?
There is a kitchen, that is correct. We do not require a living room for dwellings, but they do have a kitchen and just an office area, but there is no living room on the first floor or second floor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Oh. Any other hands? Any other questions of staff? No? All right, is the applicant present?
Hello. Yeah, we have like homeowner, me, and I have Ramin who will like give a presentation.
Yes, hi, this is Ramin speaking. How are you? Excellent. Yeah, sorry, I had an audio issue, but I'm sorry for not having a camera. It's a work computer, but thanks for having us. Basically, as far as the project, I keep it short. What we designed, really, it's to we're dealing with a very narrow lot at this site, and obviously the owner's desire of maximizing the living space, for future use. When they bought the house, it was more of a remodel, but quickly just understanding, their needs and, they're going to be in this area for a long time. We just wanted to be able to lay out a floor plan and space that is usable for them, for their growing family. And it's just a challenge, obviously, with the size of the lot and the regulations. So we did our best of following all that steps and all the city regulations, heights and floor area as much as we could. There is the reason for the lot coverage exceptions basically is because there's a second floor that falls into above our ADU space, and that counts towards the square footage. So that's the main reason, and basically reducing that overall, it makes the livable space and bedrooms very small. So that's the main reason. And as far as the garage spaces, we're trying to obviously make 2-car garage attached, which there are familiar designs in the same neighborhood with the attached 2-car garage, and a single garage attached in the front, and then fewer houses with a detached with a side driveway. So try to kind of mimic that design in the neighborhood, talking to the neighboring houses as well, showing these designs. So that's mainly the presentation of the house, and obviously you can see the exterior, trying to comply with as much as we can with the hip roof designs and the materials and stucco finishes. I'll let the owners just to take over briefly, as they have some on their side as well, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, if that's okay, I have like a few paragraphs like prepared. Yeah, dear planning committee, I would like to introduce myself and my family. My name is Vadim, and I'm the homeowner of 114 Grove Avenue. Our family of 4 has been living in Burlingame for the last 3.5 years, and our 2 daughters, Mila and Mia, go to TK and 3rd grade in Lincoln Elementary School. My wife, Vali, who is also on the call, is a frequent volunteer at the school, a class parent, and has been a Girl Scout Cookie Month for Brownies troop during the last 2 years. We really enjoy our neighborhood, great neighbors, proximity to Broadway and public transport. Our family is regulars at city libraries and city events, with our favorite being an annual family camp out. We actively try to support local businesses and schools via donations and volunteering. Right now, we live in a 100-year-old house, which is 1,100 square feet with 2 bedrooms. Our girls have been asking to have their own bedrooms for some time, and we would love to provide them this opportunity. Our house plan proposal will allow our family to try for many years for grandparents to have extended visits to their grandchildren and have enough space for Girl Scout cookies for the whole troop, or maybe 2. In the end of December, we've experienced a major flooding on Grove Street with over 1 feet of standing water in front of our house. When flooding was just starting, we knocked on our neighbors' doors to move cars away from the water and help clean street drains. Our garage started to flood, and we were very concerned that water will continue to rise and it can cause damage to our house. We would love for our house to be built based on the latest flood zone regulations. Make sure we stay safe, as more frequent heavy rains are expected due to global warming. Unfortunately, our load is significantly smaller than the recommended minimum of 5,000 square feet for R1 residential area for Burlingame district regulations. We have a narrow lot, which creates a number of challenges in planning the house, and we are asking to support the project by approving exceptions we applied for. We believe that our project will improve the look, feel, and safety of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Haran.
Yeah, just maybe the same question. I see you have a 2-car garage where 1 covered space is required, but you have no living room or dining room. So I was just wondering why you made that trade-off in terms of how you're going to utilize your living space.
Yeah, we have a small dining room, but like in our experience, like how our family like works is we spend a lot more time just like in the kitchen, like hanging out and like cooking. So we want to use that space like kitchen space as a primary eating area. And we want to use like on a second floor, there is an area in front of the bedrooms. We want to use that as kind of like mini living room, like to put like TV and like hang out like there. So it's a trade-off again, like considering like the space we have, but I believe it's possible to make it working.
Thank you.
I had a question on your front elevation. Your declining height envelope line doesn't intersect the second floor on the right-hand side. And if I'm not mistaken, that's where the special permit or the variance for the declining height envelope encroachment is.
I think it's on the left side of the that is encroaching, the left on the rear side, left of where the window is, if I'm correct.
It'd be on the left side.
So it's on our proposed elevation sheet A04 on the proposed rear elevation.
Yeah, on the rear elevation, it's on the left-hand side. The first and second floor walls align. On the front elevation, the lower and upper floor walls align.
Right.
But the declining height envelope doesn't appear to intersect that portion. I think maybe it's just a drafting area, but I just want to make sure I know where that encroachment into the declining height envelope is.
I think the design has been changed from the original one that was like we submitted and which was encroaching. So we did adjust the designs and the location of the addition. So I mean the variance requirement might have still stayed on for this, which we're not.
I think there needs to be a correction there.
Okay.
So also you have a picture of this horizontal wood siding somewhere in here, and it looks real nice. It wraps around the corner, but on your elevations it stops at the corner. It doesn't wrap. Was that intentional, or did you intend to have that siding wrap around the corner?
That was intentional because the cost, but if we were trying to do a wood siding all around, obviously the photo would have been a costly part of the project. But if that's a decision factor, we'll definitely be putting that in.
Okay. And then on your proposed left elevation, the northwest elevation, you've got on the first floor, you've got 2 windows that are really tall. Looks like they go all the way to the floor. Is that correct?
That's for the yes, that will be inside the sort of the attached ADU, which the grandparents will probably end up using. So that's more like for natural lights on the side. So yeah, they will go floor to floor finish. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Does anyone else have questions of the applicant? Vice Chair Pfaff.
Yeah, a couple of them. I read your the reason for your request on your to go 6 inches above the height plate on your first floor. Not really quite sure I understand that. And the second question is with regard to the double car garage, which there may be some homes in each neighborhood that have a double garage, and we're all over the city, but those are not real typical just because of the reasons my colleagues have mentioned that, and you're on a narrow lot, so did you consider a regular garage? I guess that's that's one question. And did you consider trying to work within the standards that the city has, even with your small lot? You're not the only smaller lot that exists, and there are nice examples of homes that have been done that are probably large enough. What you're proposing is quite a bit larger than the home I'm in, and I have 2 kids and 2 grandkids. So it can work. I don't have a double car garage, however. So I just was curious about the height, first of all, the request for the height on the first floor, and also if you had tried any plans that were within the were fitting the standards that we have for your lot, your given lot.
I will let the owner to discuss on the height, and then I can jump into your second part.
Yeah, we can share like thoughts on both sides. In terms of height, I think like overall height of the house is significantly lower than like 30 feet, but like we have in general, like kind of the house itself, if you imagine, we have like a really tall foundation because of a flood zone. And I think like if we build the regular height floors, it may look a bit like awkward, like from our point of view. So like to make it like more proportionate, kind of we recommend to go like higher. With kind of like height on the first floor. In terms of a garage, we started from kind of like playing around as a remodel. Our kind of like current lot, if you imagine we have like a house and we wanted to like build on top of our house and leave garage in the back. But then like the challenge is that we quickly like max out like far, like on our lot. And then like pretty much like backyard becomes unusable. If you add like ADU, we like consume like whole lot by garage and like ADU in the house. And you will only have like driveway like on the side. From like just functional point of view, kind of it doesn't make like any sense. And kind of that's why we decided to bring it like to the front. Kind of in terms of like 2-car garage, I imagine as like also like kids grow up, we will need to like expand our cars. We right now like have 2 cars, and it's a bit of a like challenge like finding parking spot because we live pretty close to Broadway, and like from Broadway there's like quite a bit of like traffic like coming in as like people park in the neighborhoods. So kind of as like we and like our like neighbors with like similar age kids like grow up, we expect like more cars to be available like in the neighborhood, and it will become just like harder and harder to park like over time. So that's why we would love to have like just a wider driveway and like larger garage to take our cars off like the street like when it's possible. So that's a primary reason why we would love like to go that. So like combination of having like a really narrow lot, kind of which like makes it hard to keep garage in the back, and kind of just like being practical about like parking like in the neighborhood, and being like friendly to our neighbors so that we don't take their spaces.
Okay, and then finally, did you have a landscape plan on attached, or do you have
Yeah, there should have been landscape drawings as well that were proposed as far as the sheets.
Got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, it's pretty minimal. Yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant from the commission? Don't see any hands. So do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
No public comment emails were submitted, and I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any discussion on this project? Well, I'll start. I have a lot of problem with all the requests. I go along with the idea that a two-car garage is not necessary. I find it very odd that there's no living space on the first floor and there's a long wall between the ADU and the kitchen, being that the ADU does not count towards floor area. I don't know what the future of the interior of this building is, but to me as a builder, it looks like a pretty simple conversion. So I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but it would be very simple for someone to just make this house bigger. I have problems with some of the elevations and with the application of the finished materials on the outside, as I had indicated in my questions. I think that the project needs a lot of work. I, for one, feel that if you have a smaller lot, you get a smaller house. That's the way it works. I've never bought into the argument that it's a substandard lot. There is no standard lot in Burlingame. They're all different sizes. They're all different shapes. We're not a subdivision. So we're going to have different size lots. So we're going to have different size houses. And that's part of the beauty of what we have in Burlingame. It makes us be creative and makes us be very efficient with a smaller house because it is a smaller lot. So I'm not in support of any of the variances. I'm not in support of the plate height. I think this needs a lot of work, and I will listen to my fellow commissioners in order of the hands raised that I see. I'll start with Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't see the only, I can understand the attached garage as an attached garage. There's plenty of examples on that street, so I can support an attached garage. I think that the attached two-car garage makes the elevation look horrible. And I think it's at a sacrifice to the house itself. Given that it is a smaller lot, it's now sacrificing the living of the house for the garage. So again, I can support the attached. I just don't think the elevation works. I understand the floodplain. We've looked at a few of these houses in these streets recently, and the floodplain is an issue. Totally get it. But I don't see the reason to have a 9'6" plate height on the first floor to make it even higher. And it doesn't even help proportionally to the elevations at all. So I don't support that. I don't support the FAR request either. This house is over the FAR and it's adding an ADU that I agree with Chair Gall looks to be a reason to break down the wall. So I can't see that being a legit use. And so architecturally, there's nothing that I see here that really works. I'm worried about the materials just being on the front and not trying to wrap around or be integrated. I think that this is a design review candidate for sure. And I would hope that the owner takes a hard look at this process. Doing these remodels are expensive and are going to be costly. And if you're starting out this way now, when you get the cost, it's even going to be harder. And these are perfect examples of houses where they don't go through as they should, and then they get in the middle and all sorts of changes need to happen because there's no money for it, and then it changes the whole design, which we're not really in support of. So I would encourage the team to really understand the cost and implications of what they're asking for and what we're trying to promote with design, so that they can have a really good project and not have something that goes sideways. Thanks.
Okay, I see a lot of hands, but I also see the city attorney has his hand up, so I'd like to put him to the front of the line.
Thank you very much, Chair Gall. Thank you all, commissioners. Just wanted to say, I know, although it is something that may be popping out of the floor plan, we still cannot mention or talk about the ADU in any way. even about the prospective uses that it could be in the future, that is state law, so it's not something that we can comment on. With that, back to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Haran.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to be too repetitive. I think the 2-car garage is my main issue in terms of the front elevation. It just is not a good look, in my opinion. I'm usually supportive of 9'6" plate heights when there's large open areas, and that kind of large open area would create low ceiling feeling. But the current layout of the first floor doesn't warrant a 9'6" plate height, in my opinion. And the fact that the house is raised makes it kind of worse to me, not better. So I don't like the windows. They're way too big in some cases. It's just a bit of a wacky design from my perspective. So I think it needs some work. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Say.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I see enough examples of an attached garage in the neighborhood that could be acceptable, but I think that the 2-car garage, as was stated earlier, it does take up the majority of that front elevation, so I do have some trouble with that. I think with the, we know there's a limited lot size, but there is a bonus of having added the ADU. You do get that credit for that space, which is nice. But looking at the floor plan, I feel like there's lots of areas where space is not being well utilized. Large hallways, really large bedrooms, and spaces that I think for a smaller lot could proportionately have rooms in relationship to the size of this property. And I think that there should be a better effort put towards meeting the FAR than asking right off the bat for such a large FAR variance as well. I think this would be a perfect candidate for a design review consultant. And I think for a number of the reasons we've talked about already, or my fellow commissioners have stated, sorry if I wasn't noting whether anyone mentioned that there's a number of inconsistencies, even with kind of window sizes and types and shapes. And so that also could be, we could get some assistance with the design review consultant. And additionally, I think that the roof design could cohesively be pulled together in a better format as well.
Okay, so that kind of partway through there sounded like a motion to send this to a design review consultant. Is that in fact a motion?
I can do that. I think Commissioner Camarado might want to speak first.
Oh, Commissioner Camarado.
No, I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think we should send this to design review consultant.
Okay, so there's our motion.
Second that motion.
Oh, Vice Chair Pfaff?
Well, no, that's right. Did someone second it?
I think you just did.
Okay, well, I just did, but then do you open for other comments before
we can, so we have a motion by Commissioner Camarado, a second by Vice Chair Pfaff. Are there any comments on or questions on the motion?
Yeah, it's not a question, it's a comment. And that is, I would like to see direction given to the design consultant to work within the parameters of what is legal, what is a standard in whatever size lot this is, 4,000, whatever it is, whatever the equation turns out to be, because they do exist. And there are some very nice homes that are, large, that have been accomplished within our regulation. So I'd like to see that instruction given also.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? No, then we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pfaff,
Aye.
Chair Gall.
Aye. So motion passes 7-0-0, and this motion is not appealable. So we'll move on to agenda item 9 D, 1204 Mills Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communication regarding this item? I don't see any hands, so let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to replace the existing one-story single-unit dwelling with a detached garage at 1204 Mills Avenue with a new two-story single-unit dwelling and new detached one-car garage. The application includes requesting for a special permit for building height where 31 feet is proposed, 30 feet is the maximum allowed without a special permit. Planning staff would note that the subject site is in a flood zone and must have a raised finished floor to meet FEMA requirements. This project includes a detached accessory dwelling unit that is attached to the proposed detached single-car garage and located in the rear yard. Review of the ADU application is administrative only and not subject to Planning Commission review. Staff has determined that the ADU complies with the ADU regulations. In summary, the applicant is requesting design review for a new two-story single-unit dwelling and detached garage and a special permit for building height. The applicant is in attendance to answer questions from the commission, but first I'm available for questions of staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? I don't see any hands, so I am going to open the public hearing with the applicant. Please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project.
I guess I'll just start. Good evening, chairs and commissioners. I'm Ann with Architecture Allure. And go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry. Apologies to the commission. You'd think being in tech, I would know how to work Zoom by now. So thanks for your patience. Just a couple of words to introduce ourselves. We are Tim and Sue Fisher, and I'm a Bay Area native. My wife Sue's from back east. We moved our family down from San Francisco about 8.5 years ago, down to Burlingame, in pursuit really of great public schools and closer proximity to family. What we have today is we've got a 4th grader and a 5th grader at Lincoln Elementary, and 2 sets of in-laws who live close by on the peninsula. So I want to turn it over to my wife, Sue.
Well, quickly, I was just going to say that what we did to buy this house was to move for great education and being close to family. But what we couldn't have planned was the community that we just lucked into. We walked to school with a pack of like 40 deep of kids and dogs, and all of our neighbors say that like, no matter what, we're all going to be buried here because this community is like no other for being a parent, for, you know, friendships. Our kids have all made great friends, ride their bikes everywhere very safely. So it's because of this community that we intend to build the dream house that we've always kind of imagined on the same plot where we first moved. We wouldn't dream of being anywhere else. And as the project is getting closer, we have reached out to our immediate neighbors personally to solicit any questions or concerns and made them aware of tonight's discussion. We welcome their input and we thank you so much for your careful consideration of our project. And we'll turn it over to Ann.
Thanks, Tim and Sue. As I said, good evening, chairs and commissioners. I'm Ann Revisa with Architecture Allure. Just to kind of recap the project. So designing the dream home for Tim and Sue Fisher. There's a blend of styles of homes on this street and a blend of single story and 2-story. So as we're designing this 2-story, we're looking at kind of a lot of these other styles. It looks like there's a lot of gable forms, simple gable forms, primary gable running front to back. So we took on that same kind of look, blend in with the neighborhood. Variety of styles and materials as well. So we're looking at using some wood shingle and some vertical siding, some stone, so natural materials and color palette. traditional in form and style with some modern kind of elements of steel railings, aluminum dark windows, and then a bit of kind of change of materials to add some articulation and some interest. We're available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant? Vice Chair Pfaff.
Hi, I'm Ann. Yes, I appreciate the rendering that was sent during the day. Do you only have the one rendering from the, okay, from the sort of front side? Right, that was my question. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? No, then do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item?
We do have one hand raised from Angela Sterling. So Angela, you may begin. Just unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chair Gall and commissioners. We appreciate your time. My husband, Ed, and I are speaking on behalf of Martha Sterling. Unfortunately, she was not able to join us. She's a bit stressed out by this process and is having a little bit of anxiety. So she will not be joining us. Martha has several points, and I don't know that I'm going to get them in under 2.4 seconds, 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Martha is very concerned about listening to the construction. She has no refuge or place to go and will be subject to the banging and construction noises 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. The noise is one of her primary concerns. We would like to know when the construction timeframe is and when do you expect demolition and when do we expect building for and for how long? She's also concerned about the construction timeframe at 1205 Mills Avenue. This project is directly across the street from the 1204 project. Parking, dumpsters, noise, dirt, debris, all concerns. Mills Avenue, when people are parked outside, is a one-lane street at best. We want to ensure usage of her driveway and the ability to back out of it without being blind, like as if a dumpster was in the street. We would like to ensure the parking in the front of her house is maintained. When the Fishers told us of their desire to add a second story several months ago, that's all they said. They said it was just a second story. They did not elaborate. We did receive a letter 4 days ago in our mailbox if we had any questions to address with them. But there was no other contact on that subject. As the house is being demolished and a completely new home is being built, beyond the noise, and how this will affect Martha's quality of life, she is concerned about the lack of privacy. The level of the existing deck is very high, and she sees everything in their backyard and in their kitchen. She has been stopped going out on her patio because she doesn't feel comfortable feeling watched. And it's not to say that they aren't nice. You know, the Fishers are very nice neighbors. They've been very kind to Martha over the years. But there are several reasons that she has for her concerns. The reason there are no bushes currently, with the exception of the ones that were recently posted, is because they grew through the garage and had to be removed. Martha has since replaced the siding and she has repainted and replaced the siding. During the Fishers' construction of their backyard, they added a video screen on her siding without her permission. We want to ensure that is properly fixed during the construction. I have several other comments from Martha. I don't know how you would like me to address these.
Okay, yeah. I believe that your time is up, but you can always email and we will all get those comments in our packet.
Do you have the video that I sent to the public comment inbox?
We did receive it, but we've never played a video on during the meeting. It's up to you, Chair. I can give it a try, but
How long is the video?
24 seconds.
If you can do it, Ruben, I'll sit through it with everyone.
Okay, let me.
So the video, amongst the construction that recently happened in the backyard was some installation of artificial turf. And the drainage wasn't, didn't seem to be done properly. The Fishers came to great lengths and did put in a French drain following the flooding of our garage. Martha's lived in her house 58 years and has never had such an issue. And we think it is a direct result of the raising of the grade in the backyard during the installation of the artificial turf. Although the French drain has minimized it.
Thank you, but your time's up. We're just going to play the video. Does anyone have any questions for this, for Angela?
I'll go ahead and play the video.
Okay. Okay, and that apparently is the water intrusion from the property line wall.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking at the plan, and this is you're representing the neighbor to the right as you're facing the house from the street. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so that wall is on what on these plans shows as the neighboring accessory structure.
Yes, sir.
At the rear of the property. Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Thank you.
Does anyone else in the public have any like to make any comments or have any thing to say about this project? No. Vice Chair Pfaff, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just there are a lot of different materials that are being used, and it's on the rendering that was sent, and I know it's just a rendering, it's not really clear to me how the transitions go between the wood-like material and the I guess it's stucco. And I think that as far as design review, we're just talking about design review, that kind of can make or break a project so it doesn't look glued on. And I guess I was, I'll look at my colleagues.
Did you have a question for the applicant or the architect on that?
Oh, yeah, the architect.
Still just, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I could just speak to that. Yeah, we've got two different siding materials. We have wood shingle, which would be mitered, edges around the corners. And then we've got vertical wood siding. So it's a wood to wood connection. And then we've got some stone just at the fireplace, and then at the porch, the raised porch.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? And we don't have anyone else in the public who'd like to speak. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate the neighbors' concerns. And that's always one of the challenges with any of these projects. And, the disturbance of soil and things that then change the way water moves. And so that's something I would hope that the design team will work with the neighbor on to try and make sure that the changes in the backyard don't negatively impact that accessory structure. As far as the noise, I'm sorry about that. I mean, that's the way it works here in Burlingame. Where I lived for a while, 3 houses on the same block over a 2-year span went under construction. And that's the way our neighborhoods are going right now. We do have rules in place for hours of construction to try and minimize it, but we can't make it go away. And so that's what we have our rules and regulations for. As far as the design, I like the design quite a bit, and I appreciate the rendering that came through today because that really helped me visualize this a little bit better, and it helps me to see the materials and things. And to Vice Chair Foss' point, I see, at least just in the rendering, I see a couple spots of transition that I worry about a little bit. The transition from the vertical wood siding to the stone porch. I would 3D that. I actually had that transition on a house where the corner post was right on the corner, and then what are you supporting it on? And if that aligns with your material transition, which it looks like it does for the siding, how does the porch transition happen at that inside corner? So those are some great details to work on, because if you wait, it'll be an ugly install. But I actually like the materials, and I like the way this looks. I would also actually think about the wood siding as it comes down to the ground behind those bushes. Wood siding doesn't traditionally handle water and sprinkling very well. So that may be an issue to consider if you're going to have a planting strip there. But again, I think it's a good project, and I could see it going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowenthal.
Yeah, thank you. I took the words out of my mouth. The vertical siding on the left side of the house concerned me going all the way down to the ground. Maybe some relief with some sort of stone veneer or different material at the bottom may also break that up a little. It just seems like a long run of vertical siding. Maybe if we had a left side rendering straight on, it might change that. But overall, I agree with the design. I think it looks real nice. I think it's going to fit the neighborhood. I can certainly find for the 31-foot special permit, especially given our flood zone requirements here, they're not asking for special plate heights. And in my opinion, it looks very proportional. I don't think it's massive in any way, shape, or form. And I think they really did well with the porch. I like the porch size. And I think the whole thing flows real well. So I think, I'd be in favor of moving this over to regular action.
Thank you. Yeah, I would have to agree. Overall, I like the project. I think it will fit in well. I like the traditional materials that are on there. However, some of the elevations and the perspective drawing look a little bit plain. I'm just wondering if maybe it could be dressed up a little bit with some knee braces at the gable ends, or maybe some bigger window trim. I'm looking at the shingling being more of a traditional craftsman style of a house, and I don't know, it just looks a little bit plain to me. I'm glad that you're mitering the corners. I think that's a very nice, classy touch, but I maybe one more pass on some of the trim. Those are my only comments. Anyone else have any comments, or would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Schmidt.
I'd like to do both. No, just as you were mentioning that, it got me to looking at it a little bit more carefully too, is, you're going to have gutters and downspouts, and that front corner where the columns are is very prominent, and you're going to end up with a downspout on it. So plan for it now, or it's going to be on the other corner, but you're going to have some downspouts going down some places you don't show right now and may not like. So I would get on that sooner than later. But otherwise, I'd like to make a motion that this comes back on regular action, and that I support the height variance request.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Schmidt, second by Commissioner Haran. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any hands, so can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Lowenthal.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Commissioner Say.
Aye.
Vice Chair Foff.
Aye.
And Chair Gall.
Aye. So the motion passes 7-0-0, and this is not appealable. All right, so that brings us to our final design review study item, item 9E, 1200 to 1340 Bayshore Highway. If you're the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communication regarding this project? I see a couple of hands. Commissioner Haran?
Yeah, I had a Zoom meeting with the developer to lead me through these drawings.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmidt?
Same.
And Commissioner Say?
Same for me.
All right. And there are no recusals on this item, I believe. So let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, first, can you guys hear me okay? Yep. Good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Catherine Keelan with the Planning Department. I'd like to introduce to you this evening Kelly Beggs. She's with Good City Company, and she's taking the lead, assisting the city with the entitlements for this project. Good City Company comes to us highly regarded. They're a contract planning firm that does a lot of work on the peninsula. They've done some work for the city of Burlingame in the past. So she will be providing you an overview this evening of the project. So just wanted to introduce you to Kelly. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. As Catherine mentioned, I'm Kelly Beggs. I'm a contract planner for the city of Burlingame. I'm pleased to be here to present the item before you tonight, which is an application for environmental review, commercial design review, and special permits for height and development under Tier 3 community benefits for a new office R&D project consisting of 3 11-story buildings and 2 10 to 10.5-story parking structures located at 1200 to 1340 Bayshore Highway. The application also includes a development agreement pre-application for review this evening. The Planning Commission held an environmental scoping session on August 22nd of last year for this project, the minutes of which are attached to your staff report, and also received an introduction to the project with City Council on April 23rd of last year. I'll briefly review the staff report for the project, and the applicant has also prepared a presentation to present to you this evening. The 12-acre project site is located at northeast of the intersection of Airport Boulevard and Bayshore Highway and is located in the Bayfront Commercial Zoning District and is designated as Bayfront Commercial by the general plan. The site currently consists of a variety of office, restaurant, retail, and hotel buildings, as well as those associated surface parking lots. The Bay Trail terminates at the northern and southern boundaries of the project site along the bay, and Easton Creek runs through the center of the project site. Staff has provided a summary of compliance with the Bayfront Commercial Development Standards in the staff report, and I will highlight some key components of that analysis. The proposed project includes redevelopment of the site with 3 11-story office R&D buildings and 2 10 to 10.5-story parking structures. The proposed buildings would have a maximum height of 214 feet and 6 inches. The tenant improvements will ultimately determine the end use of the project, and it could range from an overall building program of 100% R&D use to an 100% professional office use, or a combination of those uses. The project would extend the Bay Trail through the project site, connecting to those existing segments north and south of the project sites. Because the project includes construction in the shoreline band and the construction of that Bay Trail segment, BCDC approval of the project is required prior to the city's building permit issuance. The project has been reviewed by BCDC's Design Review Board twice and received positive feedback after the applicant incorporated design changes, contracting the building footprints and expanding the open space around the Bay Trail and Easton Creek in response to the board's comments. Trails would also be provided along Easton Creek. 2 2,500 square foot restaurants are proposed at the ground floor adjacent to the Bay Trail in the southern and central buildings. Vehicle access to the site would be provided from Bayshore Highway via 3 driveways, which would also provide access to the site's 2 garages. Loading docks internal to the office R&D buildings would also be accessed via these 3 driveways. The project will provide a total of 3,400 parking spaces split between the 2 parking structures, and that's with 1,632 spaces in the northern parking structure and 1,728 spaces in the southern parking structure. 40 public parking spaces would be provided in the southern parking structure for Bay Trail and restaurant users. This exceeds the space requirement required by the municipal code, both with and without that 20% TDM reduction. The project does include a TDM plan with a variety of measures to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips, and those include an increased job density provided at the project site, bicycle facilities, bike and pedestrian network improvements, an employee survey, commute trip reduction marketing, and enhanced commute.org shuttle service to the project site. The project proposed height requires a special permit for height, which is required for any building with a height greater than 65 feet in the VFC district. The buildings range from a maximum height of 210 feet 6 inches for the southern building to 214 feet 6 inches for the north and center buildings, as measured from the average top of curb along Bayshore Highway to the top of the mechanical screens at the roof of each building. The southern and northern parking structures have proposed heights of 104 feet 10 inches and 113 feet 10 inches respectively. The project must also comply with FAA standards and receive a determination of no hazard to air navigation. The applicant received this letter for the project on June 22nd of 2021 and has resubmitted a renewal application to extend that determination. And that will be a condition of approval on the project when it does move forward for action. The total proposed floor area is 1,420,000 square feet, which equates to a floor area ratio of 2.71. The base allowable FAR in the BFC zoning district is 1.0, but the district does allow for the opportunity to increase FAR up to 3 under the Tier 3 development standards. Projects that utilize the Tier 3 development standards are required to provide a minimum of 3 community benefits and a planning commission approval of a special permit. The applicant's proposal does exceed the community benefit requirement by providing a 7,800 square foot public plaza at the southern end of the project site, sea level rise infrastructure, habitat restoration along the creek and southern wetland, cultural event space via an airport viewing platform, a northern picnic and event lawn, and southern performance area and gathering space, publicly accessible park space, and that enhanced commute.org shuttle service. The applicant will review these project features in their presentation so that you'll get a better idea of them. The applicant has also submitted a pre-application for a development agreement. And just to lay out the definition, a development agreement is a voluntary contract between a local jurisdiction and property owner that details the obligations of both parties, specifies standards and conditions that would govern development of a property, and locks in current city land use regulations for a set time. It can also be used to negotiate community benefits above and beyond those that are required by the code or by current standards. Prior to a formal application for submittal of a development agreement, the Burlingame Municipal Code requires that the Planning Commission hold a pre-application study session. The purpose of this study session is for the Planning Commission to make comments on the aspects of the development agreement proposal in advance of any action hearing. The development agreement pre-application is included as an attachment to the staff report. So to conclude, the 2 items of discussion before the commission tonight are first to review the design for consistency with the commercial design guidelines and Bayfront commercial zoning design principles, which are provided on page 10 of the staff report for your reference. And then also to review and comment on that development agreement pre-application and community benefits proposal. That concludes my report. I am available to answer any questions that you may have. And the city attorney, Michael Guinea, and Christine Crowell, outside counsel, who are working with city staff on this project, are also present tonight. And should the commission not have any questions, we can proceed to the applicant's presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant? Vice Chair Foth.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. So you were asking if we have any questions about what we're doing tonight, or about what part? What? There's 2 parts, but I'm confused what you are opening questions about right now.
So this is going to be questions of staff, just generally about the project.
Of staff. Okay.
Of staff, yes, sorry, of staff, and then we'll open up the public hearing and allow the applicant to make their presentation, and questions of the applicant will be available.
Sorry, said that wrong, I guess. So it's just questions of staff at the moment.
Oh.
And do we have any questions of staff? Commissioner Lowenthal.
Yeah, my question of staff is, on one of the pages, it talks about a 3-phase project. Is that a city instigated requirement, or is that a builder decision to propose a 3-phase project? As opposed,
That's the applicant's proposal to construct the project in 3 phases.
okay, and it was, I mean, was there any pushback from staff on that? It just seems like stretching out a project of this size longer than it needs to be in phases wouldn't be necessarily in the best community benefit.
I think understanding the scale of the project site of phase development would be expected, but we're certainly open to hearing from the commission on kind of the best way to limit any impacts to the community and enhance community benefits.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Fox, you still have your hand up?
No, I'm piggybacking on my colleague who just made a comment that I wanted to make, but I didn't know if I could make it then, or a question. Because you have it's phased here, and I'm to understand this is what the applicant wants, and the staff is not advocating for it or not advocating for it. They're just quiet on it. It's very strange. I think that it talks about phasing, and I see 3 phases on the plan, but the actual little paragraph that they're offering their phasing is only really talking about two. It talks about 2 phases, not 3. So it talks about a 20-year milestone to potentially 25, stretching this out, but they're really only in this on page 2 of 4 of the pre-app development. It's talking about just two phases, not. It talks about 3, but then it's really talking about 2, and it's completely confusing. And then therefore, what are they actually doing in phase? What infrastructure is actually happening in that first phase 1? How extensive, or is this going to be a third of a project done for potentially 25 years type of thing? Guess that's my question. It's not clear to me in here what they're asking for, what the
Would that be a question that's better asked of the applicant?
Yeah, I was gonna jump in on this one. I think the applicant's presentation is going to provide some details on their proposed phasing. You are correct, it is not a city requirement, and it's this is at the applicant's direction in terms of their proposed phasing. So I think we can let them do their presentation and probably answer some of your questions. And then some of those timelines are also a part of the development agreement terms, which are still very preliminary at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Say, did you have a question of staff?
Yeah, I think so. So with the potential for an extended construction timeline on this project with the multiple phases, is there a quick kind of pros and cons list of why the city would want to adopt a development agreement?
I think.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I think the pros and cons would really be set forth in the development agreement through negotiation. And, feel free, city attorneys, to interrupt me, but I think typically the community benefits should be substantive enough that they outweigh any concerns about the construction timeline.
I do see our outside counsel has turned on her camera, so I don't know if Christine Crowell, if you had wanted to jump in or not, but I would like to introduce our outside counsel, Christine Crowell, who has been working on this project, and also our city attorney, Gina, is here as well.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Christy Kroll. I'm with the Jarvis Bay firm, and thanks, Kevin, for that introduction. I think Kelly said it perfectly. You know, generally, development agreements are a tool for the city to use. They're a contract between the city and the developer, and they allow the city to obtain community benefits from the developer in exchange for certain things the developer might need from the city. So it's a contract, and we treat it as one, and it is adopted by ordinance. So that's why it would go to the council. But tonight you're kind of looking at the community benefits that the developer is proposing. And I don't know, Michael, if you had anything else to add.
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. So just to kind of highlight some of the things that might have already been said, but because the DA is an optional piece for both the applicant and the city, one of the benefits for the city is that it could negotiate or bargain for additional community benefits through the DA process that would not otherwise be available to it through the land use approval process, right? So we would be able to bargain for additional community benefits that we couldn't obtain as a condition of approval, for example. The other thing, though, that, so that's sort of on the plus side. It also provides the city with a certain amount of certainty, because we know we would set out in the DA what the schedule of performance would be in terms of the development timeline. And so the city would have an understanding and certainty of what that schedule of performance would look like over the total build out of the project. In exchange for that, though, the DA often asks the city to commit to certain regulatory provisions. And so one of the common provisions of a DA is that the city agrees to essentially freeze its regulatory framework at the time that the DA is entered into. So typically what would happen is that the city would agree that its zoning and its general plan would be the version of the zoning and the general plan that's in effect at the time that the DA comes into effect would be that version that would apply to the project during the whole life of the DA. Another common provision that happens is that the city agrees to freeze its fee structure for the time that the DA is in place. And so the fees that are in effect at the time that the DA is adopted would be the level of fees that would be paid throughout the life of the project. So those are just a really high level sort of pros and cons, and we can get into more of that if you have questions.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
I had a question about how long is that agreement last? I mean, the development fees are obviously going to be paid when the project is done, I guess. But I mean, can they stretch that out for 15 or 20 years or something? Or is it what I know I read in there that there is time limitation on it. What is that time limitation?
So the DA, the term of the DA would be subject to negotiation. And so it could be right now, I believe what is provided is, sorry, kind of.
Sure. Michael, I can help out.
Yeah.
So I will just point out that this is the application is it's the applicant's proposal. It's not staff's concurrence with it at all. But on page 25 of 65 on the attachments, it states that the requested term for the development agreement is 20 years, and then it sets forth proposed milestones.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Kelly. Yeah, so the applicant is proposing 20 years. Again, as Kelly said, this is just the beginning of the process, right? So the applicant is requesting a 20-year term. The city has agreed to nothing at this point, and I really want to make that clear that the city has agreed to nothing. This is really a first look at it for the commission, and so if the commission has reactions to that, we would really like to be able to hear that as well, because we will take your recommendations and your reactions to the city council, and that will inform their decision as well.
Okay, Vice Chair Fox, did you have a question?
Yeah, so, maybe I have a feeling, the applicant is going to be telling us what they're doing, what is over and above what is required, but maybe the staff, if we're still able to ask staff, could actually lay out what is a normal and in this area, what would be normal and standard, the expectation of development of a property like this, or in this zone, what would be expected of every developer?
So I can take a stab at that. So first off, there are some effects of a project that may be beneficial, but they are strictly complying with current regulations. So that would be something like upgrading stormwater management on the site. Every project would have to do that in order to comply with C3 regulations. And then in addition, this project is also proposing development under Tier 3 standards. So they have to provide 3 community benefits that are listed in your zoning code in order to get that floor area that they're requesting. So it's a little confusing, but those 3 community benefits are really required in your code in order for them to receive that FAR bonus. I mentioned that they have exceeded the 3. They are providing, you know, a fair amount of community benefits. They're providing, for example, a public plaza at the corner of Airport Boulevard and Bayshore Highway, and that'll have seating and space for public events. They're providing sea level rise infrastructure, raising the whole site out of the flood zone, building infrastructure to 17 feet, and also building park spaces up to 17 feet. They're also proposing a LEED Gold target for the new buildings. We are working with them to clarify exactly what items and measures above and beyond the REACH code that would mean, really. They're proposing habitat restoration along Easton Creek and in the southern wetland at Airport Boulevard and Bayshore Highway. They're proposing a public plaza at that southern wetland, as well as a plaza event lawn between the northern office and R&D building and the bay. They're also proposing a public airplane viewing platform at the top level of the southern parking structure, a fair amount of publicly accessible park space throughout the site, and then they are also providing enhanced commute.org service. So that's really the list that we're working with right now. As you can see, it's certainly more than 3. The applicant will also present some additional items that they're proposing as benefits that staff is still working on to determine really do go above and beyond.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm asking, if someone came to you today and said, without asking for all the heights and everything, just, I want to develop an office building or whatever in this location, what would be required of them besides the stormwater and what you just explained, the environmental stuff? Don't they have to work on do their part towards the Bay Trail, for example, and don't they need to develop the property, whatever it is, 16 feet above, or work on the wall in the back there? Are those new requirements? Some are old, some are new. I guess that's what I'm asking is forget all the tiers, just what is the baseline? What would be required of, I think we've had this for a number of years now, right? The Bay Trail and such. That's what I'm asking, I guess.
Right, and you'll notice I didn't say the Bay Trail as a community benefit because staff does believe that is already required by the BCDC and in staff's code, and in the city's code rather. I think what you're asking is if there's no tier development, are there community benefits required? And that answer is no, but there are requirements in the code. You are correct for finished floor elevations at a certain level. There are code requirements for infrastructure and sea level rise protection. The project is, as I mentioned, going above and beyond some of those requirements by doing more importation of fill and raising more of the site than is required by the code.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Camerado.
Yeah, I think this probably question is a good question for Kevin and Ruben. When Millennium had their agreement for Burlingame Point, they had a agreement with the city that was written, and obviously that was a little bit of a bigger land use, a bigger land acreage. I think it was 16.7 acres. But the total amount of building space was a bit smaller than what they're proposing on this property. Can we go look at how we created that contract with Millennium, and kind of look at how to create this one? Or was it so long ago that we can't look at it because the tiers are different now? And because I don't know how long that agreement was in place before it was actually built.
So yes and no. So the Millennium Burlingame Point project, it did have a development agreement. And the reasons for that was it included some public improvements that would not have ordinarily fallen within the code. For example, the redesign of the street, there were infrastructure improvements, pedestrian bridges. So the development agreement was able to capture that. That project had a 10-year term for the development agreement. And with it was an annual reporting requirement as well. That project was approved in 2012. And that was, not the best time to start a new construction project, if we remember. So it did go for a few years before they broke ground, and the DA allowed for the entitlements to kind of stay in place so that they could proceed with development. The other project that has had a development agreement was the 220 Park Road, the post office project as it's known. That one had a 5-year term from approval of the agreement to closure of the property, and then it had additional years added for, if you kind of extended it out, it would get to 7 or 8 years with all the different permit timelines. So these larger projects, are not unusual to have longer timelines, just because of there's a lot of moving parts. And then if there are improvements or community benefits that would not ordinarily be captured in, for example, the conditions of approval, because they're just unique and different, that's where a development agreement might be appropriate.
Yeah, I think the question it's not even a question, but it's probably a comment. It would be nice to know what we've done in the past. So what have we given to other developers? How much time have we given to them, so that we can, when we look at this, we can put it in perspective of some of the other projects we've had. So
Sure.
Thanks, Kevin.
Welcome.
Commissioner Horan, do you have a question?
Yeah, it seems more tactical at this point, but the height of the building, there's an elevation AS 301 that's saying 229 feet, but maybe I'm reading that wrong because I think you quoted 214. Could you bridge the difference between those two?
Sure, I'm just gonna head over to the sheet that you mentioned. You said that it is on
AS 301. It says top of mechanical screen 229.
So I'm thinking on that, Kelly, we might have not included the mechanical screening and just gone to the top of the top of the roof. And there are some allowances the code provides for mechanical equipment. So perhaps the architect was just measuring to the highest most point.
So I found this sheet, thanks for your patience. It does look like that elevation is measuring from NAVD 88 rather than from the average curb. So I think that that might be the variation that you see here, but we can certainly triple check those.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff? No, then I am going to open public hearing. The applicant, please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about the project.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, planning commissioners, members of the public. I'm Virginia Calkins with DivCo West, and I love that you guys are already in the weeds and the nuts and bolts of this project. I'm going to take a minute and step us back and kind of give a bit of a project overview. Joining me, actually, let me make sure I can share my screen. If you give me a second. All right. Joining me this evening from the applicant team are Seth Bland of DivCo West and Kirk Syme of Woodstock Development, our partner on the project. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share a bit about the proposed project Peninsula Crossing and its evolution since we presented to the Planning Commission and City Council jointly last April, and then subsequently to the Planning Commission for CEQA scoping in August. Our design is a product of a fruitful collaboration of some of the best consultant teams in the region and nationally. Here this evening to answer design-related questions are Brian Shiles, founding partner of WRNS Architects, and Kevin Conger, founding partner of CMG Landscape Architects. Peninsula Crossing also reflects an iterative collaboration with numerous agencies and community groups. We are grateful for the input from the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, the Bike Coalition, the Burlingame SFO Chamber of Commerce, BCDC, local hotel and business owners, the Burlingame Community Education Foundation, and the Parks and Rec Department, among others. By way of background, DivCo West is a national real estate company. We were founded nearly 30 years ago here in the Bay Area, and we're now active in the country's primary innovation markets. Over the course of several years, we assembled a 12-acre bayfront parcel in Burlingame. We chose this location because of Burlingame's vision for the bayfront and because of the local and regional connectivity. We plan to deliver a broad range of benefits to the community, including the completion of the Bay Trail. Our goal with Peninsula Crossing is to set the standard for development in Burlingame and the broader Peninsula region. The project site today, as many of you know, it's somewhat derelict. Over 80% of the surface is paved. And we see incredible potential here to invest in the natural asset of the bayfront and transform this area to a richly landscaped public open space. Peninsula Crossing aims to build upon the Burlingame Parks and Rec resources and complement the already robust recreational opportunities with a significant contribution. You can see our project site outlined here. We will be part of a network of parks with the Bay Trail connecting the open space of Peninsula Crossing to baseball fields across the street and other recreational areas along the bay. Last April, the design of Peninsula Crossing was well received at a joint session of Planning Commission and City Council. Here's the design that we presented then. Since then, we've further developed the design and the community benefits of the project. I'll first review a couple of those changes and then do a full tour of the proposed design. We've made impactful step backs of the buildings to expand the open ground plane, adding a half an acre of open space. We have broadened the view corridors at Easton Creek and the Southern Tidal Marsh, further accentuating the connection between the natural bay and the urban fabric. We've reduced the footprint of the parking garages, allowing the Bay Trail to be a nature-based experience. We've oriented the Bay Trail to meander, accenting views of native habitat and tidal waters. And we've committed to the recommended 20-foot wide Bay Trail throughout the project site to allow for safe passage of bikes and pedestrians. We've added public amenities and dispersed them throughout the site, welcoming the community to explore the full 12 acres with various destinations, including a picnic terrace and an airplane viewing platform. It is at once park, urban plaza, social space, cultural amenity, and recreational armature. We now have 2 restaurants, each highlighting a different viewpoint. 40 dedicated public parking stalls are centrally located in the southern garage alongside a restroom and hydration station. In the recent general plan, the city recognized the Bayfront as an area ripe for investment and a focus for employment growth and economic development. The plan increased the allowable density to a 3.0 FAR, which equates to 1.57 million square feet on our site. After months of further design refinement, including additional development of community benefits, we're eager to present an updated Peninsula Crossing. It includes 3 buildings and 2 parking garages totaling 1.42 million square feet, which is smaller than both the allowable 1.57 million and the 1.45 million square foot project that we presented in April. The current 12 acres of the project site includes no open space. Our proposed project includes 5.5 acres of open space spread across the site. One side note on this slide is that the red dotted line represents our property line. Before diving into the project design, I'd like to point out that the project contributes to the broader pedestrian and bicycle networks, ensuring that people can arrive safely at the site with multiple protected crosswalks outlined here. We'll start the tour of the project beginning at the intersection of Airport Boulevard and Old Bayshore Highway. The Southern Gateway Plaza serves as a welcome mat, connecting the urban grid to the Bay ecosystem and inviting the public to come and explore, connecting also to the new Broadway overpass. This exemplifies the community benefit of Public Plaza with an expansive venue to support a variety of events, including food trucks or farmers markets. Details such as electrical and water connections and curb cuts for access have all been carefully considered. This active public zone surrounds a dedicated marsh habitat for native critters and plants to thrive. Natural boulders form amphitheater seating, which could support concerts or field trip gatherings with views of the deep biodiversity of the marsh. A public restaurant in the southern building takes advantage of bay vistas and fresh air with indoor and outdoor seating. Let's now continue our stroll north along the Bay Trail. And one side note actually on the Bay Trail is we actually conducted a public poll of Burlingame citizens and found that a whopping 83% of Burlingame voters were strongly in favor of a continuous Bay Trail. The site is programmed to reflect the diversity of the community and visitors. Features areas for active use by groups or individuals, such as this fitness zone. A nature play and discovery area for children and families allows them to climb and engage in unscripted play. And a shoreline exploration area allows visitors to interact more closely with the natural world. An airplane viewing platform is featured at the top level of the southern parking garage, which is also the garage with the 40 public parking stalls, public restrooms, and a hydration station. A family could park there and take the elevator to the top to marvel at landing planes and read some educational signage. Now, this is a view from the bay looking up Easton Creek. We're proposing to re-envision this into a richly landscaped nature corridor, layered with native species, drawing the bay ecosystem in towards Old Bayshore Highway. A second restaurant is located here in the middle building. The Easton Creek corridor encourages the public to meander down creekside trails to experience the bay. We have a commute.org dedicated shuttle stop where the creek meets the road on Old Bayshore Highway. We're committing to funding commute.org shuttles every 15 minutes from the project site. This shuttle ride will allow visitors to get to Millbrae, Caltrain, and BART in a short, convenient ride. We're also building a protected bike lane and new broad sidewalk along Old Bayshore Highway, contributing public infrastructure on private land as a community benefit. Here we are now walking along the creek towards the bay. The landscape of Peninsula Crossing serves multiple purposes. It provides beautiful public park space, as we've already discussed, but it's also a working landscape, reestablishing natural stormwater patterns. Rainwater that falls onto the site will be conducted to planted areas and recharged back into the ground, using natural processes to limit the burden on the city's storm drain systems. Furthermore, the overall reduction in paved surfaces mitigates the project's heat island effect. We arrive here at the second restaurant, located in the middle building. We envision a site that will not only be active from 9 to 5. Activity will be dispersed throughout the day and weekends, reflecting the range of citizens and visitors. And a note on kind of the scale of the project, we intentionally acquired enough land to create a real, authentic place, one that's alive throughout the week and the year. The shoreline includes areas of dedicated habitat, especially this location right at the mouth of the creek, which was identified by the Sierra Club as particularly valuable for native species. We're going to hop north now to experience the final section of the Bay Trail adjacent to the northern building. We're now looking south. Here we've planned for a public bike share and mechanic station. There's a layered sunlit picnic terrace framed by the sweeping Bay Trail. One detail is that throughout the site, we've engaged a wind engineer to inform our design. Overall, we've reduced the amount of area of the site with uncomfortable winds, and we've located areas of programming in shielded zones where possible. The picnic area is further framed by the building colonnade. A new bridge spans Easton Creek for bike and pedestrian traffic. The park space accommodates the wild, the cultivated, the intimate, and the social. An overlook just north of the creek supports these more contemplative moments. And it's where we'll wrap up our tour to discuss the architecture. The buildings themselves have been carefully designed to be more grounded and of the earth at the lower levels, breaking down to a human scale. Upper levels are more ethereal and of the sky. The building reflects biophilic design principles, accenting indoor and outdoor connections with articulated balconies and infused with natural materials. The facade materials reflect the earth and air concept and also take into account high performance, sustainable facades and bird safe treatment. The buildings embrace the REACH code with all electric core and shell HVAC systems that reflect a 73% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions relative to a gas-fired equivalent. Brian Shiles of WRNS can go into great detail regarding the architectural moves in the question and answer period. Our plant palette reflects the clear priority of native species and drought-tolerant plants requiring minimal irrigation. Kevin Conger from CMG is here and available to speak more about the species selection, which has also been informed by the biologists at H.G. Harvey. We're planting over 200 new trees to provide needed natural shade. The built site elements are of the same vocabulary, creating a cohesive natural palette throughout the whole experience. The site is interspersed with signage designed to help the public and visitors find points of interest, but also signage to support education and art to enhance the overall experience. This slide includes some illustrative examples. Lighting is designed minimally for sensitive habitats, but sufficient to provide public safety. Now, when we first brought this project to city staff for discussion in summer of 2021, well before sea level rise made it into the zoning code, we subsequently learned about the city's new priority to address sea level rise. And hearing this priority actually prompted us to slow our whole application process while we coordinated with the city and One Shoreline to better understand these goals of the new measures. We engaged a renowned shoreline engineering firm, Moffitt and Nickel, to redesign our project to meet the new standards and to incorporate shoreline protection at a FEMA certifiable level. Ultimately, we commend Burlingame for bold, forward-thinking leadership on climate change. And we're excited to propose a project that incorporates shoreline infrastructure at 17 resilience. Peninsula Crossing is setting the standard for sea level rise resiliency. And in designing our proposed solution, we wanted to ensure that the protection for the future did not come at the expense of great park space today. By integrating raised grades and stitch piers where necessary into the landscape, our design presents a seamless natural shoreline. We're taking a living shoreline approach that uses native habitat as part of the erosion protection solution. This plan shows the portion of the city that will be protected by a 17-foot high elevation delineation. When we first mapped this contour, we were struck by the magnitude of this area. It's big, and this zone is at increasing risk of flood. The rains of last month are only another reminder. We're excited to contribute meaningfully to protecting these key areas, including the Broadway Business District, the Rollins Road neighborhood, the Caltrain tracks, and 101. We see this protection as a key community benefit of Peninsula Crossing. getting into some of the project nuts and bolts and how this might be phased and some of the topics that have already been raised earlier this evening. We understood the community's clear priority of connecting the Bay Trail. So we're proposing a complete temporary Bay Trail at the conclusion of our first phase. For the buildings, we plan to start in the middle, which also includes the critical intersection. Following that, we'll move to the southern building, finishing in the northern part of the project. Because of the complexity of the project, we've engaged the city in discussing a development agreement, and this is in part to ensure delivery of community benefits as we've outlined. Thank you for your time touring a project that we think could truly transform the Burlingame Bayfront and deliver a broad range of community benefits, from public plazas to recreational areas and from infrastructure to the Bay Trail. We look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Virginia. That was very informative. Okay, does anyone, and I'm sure that we do have some questions of the applicant. Vice Chair Fox. You're muted.
Sorry about that, Virginia. Could you move to the previous slide where you had your phases marked, please? Yeah. So am I to understand from this slide that you're proposing for phase one, there's I'm talking about what you're calling a community benefit. So you're proposing this bridge, but you're not proposing to complete the northern side of Easton Creek, or I'm not getting it.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Let me clarify. So the orange arrows represent a Bay Trail in a temporary condition. So at the completion of phase one, we will complete a Bay Trail. You'll be able to ride your bike from the north end of the site to the southern end of the site. However, the Bay Trail in the orange areas may be of a temporary, like it won't necessarily be at the same height at the time that phase moves forward. It may be replaced. But you'll ride your bike at the completion of phase one, the entire length of the project site. We heard that as a very clear priority from the community.
Which you would have to do developing the property though anyway. So the second part was you're showing half of Easton Creek, but you're not showing, I mean, unless I'm not understanding this properly, it looks like you have landscaped phase one of Easton Creek on one side, but the second side has not been, you want to call it beautified, whatever it is. It's a mess now, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, are you not doing phase three, possibly for 20 years or 25 years? If you would get your development agreement, whatever it's called, whatever this contract is called. So what do you intend to actually do with Easton Creek with phase one?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to use your term to beautify, we won't be planting, the final condition of the shrubs here on the north side of Easton Creek until we plan that building. That building will be part of phase three, and we are requesting flexibility for, exactly when phase three gets delivered because of the nature of the scale of this project. It's not an unusual request.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Camerado.
Yeah, thank you. So will you be able to tell us in your process, the orange arrows Bay Trail, what that material will be, if it's going to be completely different than phase one's material, and what that would look like? Because
that definitely will be part of our process, as a detailed design of that. One sort of example is there's a temporary Bay Trail at the Mission Rock project in San Francisco right now, which is, I would say, heavily used by people. One reason that it won't necessarily be in the final condition is that we talked a little bit about the complexity of the sea level rise measures. One aspect of that is that we're going to be bringing on a lot of dirt to the site, and the dirt has to sit in order.
No, I'm not just, I understand that, but what I want to know is, what is this going to look like? Because if we're giving you a new operating agreement on how long we're going to give you, then that means that these particular areas, at least phase 2 and phase 3, that Bay Trail won't be redone until each phase is built. And so what I want to know is, what does that Bay Trail look like as a temporary standing until it's completed?
That's a great question. And we haven't designed it fully yet, and would be happy to be in discussion as that is designed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a simple question. 3 phases, how long for phase 1? How long for phase 2? How long for phase 3? I guess I'm getting around to the length of the DA, because I don't know if, I mean, that's a number we can also negotiate too, right?
Yeah.
You guys are throwing 20 years out. We may come back with something else. And that's, so I'm straightforward. What do you think? Honestly, I mean, I get the same question as a residential contractor, you know.
Yeah.
When are you going to be done? Get the porta potties out of here. So
Yeah.
What do you think on each phase?
I mean, it's roughly a 2-year sort of construction time horizon, but the problem is it's really hard for me to see the future and anticipate exactly what the economy is going to do. And so I think what's important is that we put forward carefully in the development agreement, as City Attorney Gina outlined, exactly what you're getting in each phase. So as an example, in phase 1, completing the intersection that's going to contribute to the public safety of the project, completing a protected bike lane across the project frontage, completing the entire Bay Trail. Those are things that we want in writing in the contract with the city, so that you understand exactly what's coming with each phase.
Okay, so we could even negotiate the length of those by phase, could we not? Or do you want to just do it as the overall project?
I mean, we're going to need to put forward what a reasonable construction timeframe is. So if you're a contractor, and if you can tell me you can find someone who can build one of these buildings in a year, I'll take the name of that person. But all of this is certainly up for discussion in terms of how much flexibility there is.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Schmidt.
So with that in mind, looking at the phase 3 parcel where the movie theater is and some other stuff, is it then your intention that will kind of remain as is for the next 4 to 5 years while you're doing phase 1 and 2, or is it become a chain link fence? What is the interim for the downstream parcels while you're doing the work, or will they be used as construction parcels to help actually do the construction in the phase 1?
It's a good question. So I alluded to it before. Our project, a big aspect of it is actually how much dirt is brought to the site and how long that dirt needs to sit. And so phase 3 will be dirt sitting, compacting, getting ready to be sea level rise protection. And I mean, I personally have a kind of secret hope that it's a place for sea level rise protection education, and becomes a place that, people come and sort of realize the complexity and time associated with building earthen berms, and, is preparing to ultimately be a biosciences building.
So then it would be your intention that all 3 phases lots would be demoed sooner than later, and an entire site fence erected, but then starting earth movement and underground work on all 3, but really it's phase 1 that's going to rise out of the ground and be a building first.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, Vice Chair Fox.
Sorry, if somebody else wants to go first, that's fine. I didn't want to, my intention was not to dominate the section.
I think it's okay. Your hand was up first.
Okay, so this is similar to my first question, which is you are asking, doesn't mean you're going to get it, for potentially 25 years between, it looks like the first phase even and the second phase. The third phase isn't mentioned. So I'm not understanding you. You're saying you're putting dirt potentially here to settle. I get it. But is that also meaning that you do not intend to do the riprap or whatever the word is, the change in elevation, the wall, if you will, on the other two, on phase 2 or 3 until you actually get to those phases? Is that what I'm understanding? So for example, the bike lane, and you have to excuse me because I'm not in contracting. So now I'm sort of picturing this temporary, whatever it is, temporary bike lane or trail, that it could potentially like be a dip down, right? And then you're coming up to your phase 1, you go over the bridge and then you're a certain level, right? And then you could go down on the phase 2 because that hasn't been lifted yet. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to understand how these pieces go together if they're done potentially far apart.
Okay, hon.
No, it's a good question. You're getting at the heart of the complexity of the project. Actually, it's a grading challenge. So first, I just want to correct, the request is for a 20-year period, not 25-year.
But the 25 is stuck at 5 extra. The paper I have says 5, a 5-year extension. Well, anyway, never mind. It's okay. Just continue.
Okay, no, but it's a good question on the site grading. And I can't pretend that we know the exact grades of every part of the site every year. What I do know is that our project site is eventually, roughly at between 16 and 17, depending on where the site is. Today, it's at roughly 10. And so we will, you're right, have to work through ramping conditions to ensure that the existing conditions meet the future conditions. And those are things that we're needing to work through at the northern edge of the site and the southern edge of the site, regardless. So where that transition point happens, you're right, we're going to have to work through what those grades are and how we meet them over time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Camerado.
Yeah, so I mean, wouldn't it be economically wise to do phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time? I mean, if you're driving piles down into the ground, and you've got the machinery out there to do those piles, wouldn't it just be cost effective to at least, I feel like doing phase 1 and 2 at the same time just seems economically a little more feasible, since you're driving piles and you've got construction going on and you're grading the land. That land is kind of all in one tier, right? So is there an opportunity to do, instead of 3 phases, 2 phases?
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility and an opportunity, and you're right, thinking about how to mobilize the same crews is a big part of how we're approaching this. I think right now, at the early part of this development agreement process, as City Attorney Michael Gina described, it's sort of early days in this negotiation. And what we're looking for is flexibility, because the world is not where it was 12 months ago. It's not where it was, last April when we last presented the project. And so it's hard for us to anticipate exactly what the future holds and exactly how big of a project we'll be ready to undertake sort of right out of the gate. And so I think that's where we're looking to have some amount of flexibility in the development agreement, and also to ensure that you get the community benefits that are commensurate with each phase.
So I have one more question regarding these 3 phases. It looks like there are different parcel numbers associated with this property site. If you create the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, then do you have only three separate parcels? And can you parcel off and sell one of those parcels? So let's say you decide to do phase 1 and have that one parcel. And then phase 2 is a second parcel. You decide not to do that, but you can sell your entitlements to somebody else who can potentially do that phase 2. So I think my question is, that would give you flexibility, right? It gives flexibility to you as the person who's getting the entitlements, but then you can potentially sell off each phase.
Yes.
So is that something that is possible with this, the way you've created this phase system?
Yeah, there's flexibility to, potentially, again, all sort of being proposed, but to sell individual portions. But on the flip side, that the obligations are then assignable. So someone can't buy phase 2 and say, we don't like any of the community benefits, we're just going to build a building. Those obligations are actually carried forward with that new owner. And so I think that's part of when we think about the pros and cons of a development agreement. One is ensuring that whoever holds those entitlements has those obligations to the city.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Assistant City Attorney Spansale.
Thank you, Chair Gall. I've noticed we do have a lot of people from a lot of members of the public here might be interested in speaking. So
okay,
I'm not sure how many more questions we have, but it might be good to get over there because we might have some questions based off of issues they raise.
Okay, are we finished with the presentation from the applicant, or do we have more on the architectural side?
We're done with initial presentation, and we have, additional images if people have questions on anything in particular.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to open the public. I'm going to ask if any members of the public would like to speak, because I know that we do have some.
Yes, we have John Coleman first, so let me allow him to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I need to do visual too? Visual's not coming up. My name is John Coleman. I'm the CEO of the Bay Planning Coalition, and I did send a letter to the commission on Friday in support of the project. And I've been working with Virginia and others on this project for some period of time. And I wish many projects that I worked on had the commitment to the community, the environment, and planning for the future like it is, especially climate change. This is going to be a gold standard for future Bay development in California, and particularly the Bay Area. And I think really what they have proposed for Easton Creek in bringing back literally the native species, the site will flourish. There'll be a great education program for people in the area and students. And I can't speak more highly of this project than what my letter says. And I hope that you move it forward so that this project can emulate other projects that are going to be submitted to other cities and jurisdictions throughout the Bay Area in the near future. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ruben, I'm just going to let you cue him up.
Yep. We have Kevin Crush.
Good evening, Chair Gall, Vice Chair and Planning Commission. I'm the General Manager of the Hyatt Regency San Francisco Airport, and I also submitted a letter to the Commission, I believe on February the 8th. But I would like to take the time, in case you didn't get a chance to read that, to share that with you now and read through that. Dear City Planning Commissioners, Hyatt Regency San Francisco Airport would like to demonstrate our continued strong support for the DivCo West Woodstock Development Plan along Old Bayshore Highway. The Hyatt Regency San Francisco Airport is located directly across the street from this proposed project. And this project will result in a substantial redevelopment of a significant parcel of land along the Burlingame shoreline. The proposed redevelopment will provide a much-needed enhancement to the south section of Bayshore Highway Corridor and will include the following. First, an investment in the bayfront that is vital to this community. The new Bay Trail and associated recreational areas will be a critical asset for the city, its people, and for generations to come. A substantial investment to address sea level rise, which has been mentioned. This will help protect Burlingame's Bayshore business community. 3 world-class buildings, as discussed, that will promote both business and local community, and that will establish a new design standard for the entire peninsula. This is a gold standard project in our opinion. Next, the new employment base to support our room occupancy and special events, not only in our hotel, but in the surrounding hotels and community. And finally, a project team that has continued to engage us, meaning Hyatt, as neighbors, and works collaboratively on developing a design with the broader community in mind. We want to continue the efforts to make Burlingame a premier location for people to live, work, and enjoy the amazing natural beauty of our shoreline. Divco West Woodstock's vision and commitment to the Burlingame community is going to help us achieve that goal. And I will say that Woodstock Divco West has been in constant communication and providing updates to the Hyatt, has been a great partner with us. We love what we see and the development and the enhancements that have been needed in this immediate area for such a long time. So the benefits that this development would bring, we believe, would continue to stretch the Bayshore corridor north and south and enhance the Burlingame community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Geeta Dev.
Good evening, commissioners, Chair Gall. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on the project. I want to first acknowledge that we have worked with Virginia and her team earlier, as she has mentioned, and we do appreciate their listening to some of our concerns and making changes to make the waterfront more natural, more of a natural adaptation to sea level rise, and more welcoming to the creatures the wild creatures that live in the wetlands along our waterfront. There are a few items I noticed that I would like to bring to your attention and to Virginia's team's attention. One of them is the trees. There are a lot of trees that are planned to be planted. The section showing the landscape along the waterfront indicates trees right along the edge of the bay. I just want to remind everyone that what we need is to make sure that there are no perches for raptors where they can watch the shorebirds and predate on them. So please make sure that the trees that are selected between the building and the waterfront are appropriate. The other item is for lighting. I want to commend the lighting designer for the lighting, that's the site lighting outside the buildings. They're very well done, very well protected. They shine downwards, they do not shine on the water. I do want to mention again, and I have mentioned this to the design team, that there is concern about the lights within the building, and this would be true of any building along the waterfront, which we have brought up with other developers too. We do need a way for the lighting to be shaded at night so that creatures that feed at night have a night, that the wetlands in fact do experience night. And light at night is a growing problem. And I have spoken before about this, but please do consider some way to require the lights to be shaded at night somehow. I want to mention one last thing, which is a more complicated issue. And that is that we've been researching life sciences labs, and there are 3 different levels of labs: BSL 1, Biosafety 1, 2, and 3. And when you get to level 3, the HVAC systems are quite extensive and quite noisy. And I think at this point along the bayfront, noise might be an issue. And if there are noisy redundant systems, we should come up with some way to mask them, maybe with concrete panels instead of metal louvers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for hands raised. I believe, oh, no, we do have Kelly Ishida Sloan. So let me, okay. Kelly, you may begin.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I was expecting a lot more comments. Good evening. My name is Kelly Sloan. I'm a Burlingame homeowner and an architect with 30 years of professional experience doing projects ranging from homes to master plans. I reviewed the 3 drawing sets plus the staff report, and as far as I know, I don't know anyone on the developer or the architect teams. On both a personal and a professional levels, I support this project. This area of Burlingame is severely run down. The buildings, the water's edge, the roads, especially when comparing this stretch of waterfront to those to the north and south in San Mateo. It seems like the proposed project will improve the water's edge, similar to what the Facebook campus did. And as much as I personally dislike Facebook as a company, what they did there is beautiful and a wonderful gift back to Burlingame. I also think in terms of the proposed architecture, the design is simple, sleek, refined, and modern, not some big, ugly plaster boxes plunked down. So I really appreciate that. All that said, I think there's too much parking, and I wanted to suggest a couple of things. First, I would like the city of Burlingame to consider modernizing our codes to significantly reducing the required parking for this and future developments. The staff report notes 1 space for every 400 square feet of office, which results in most of the 2,600 spaces required. Even with the 20% called for in the TDM, still results in 2,100 spaces. Secondly, the project proposes 3,400 parking spaces, which far exceeds the code requirement by almost 800 spots. The developer should at least reduce the number of parking spaces to the minimum required. I also think the 11-story buildings, office buildings, may be too tall for this location. If the developer is able to reduce or eliminate a parking structure or some parking, they could possibly redistribute the office building massing and make them smaller, make them shorter. I love the fact that the site design will daylight the Easton Creek and create green space all around it and along the water's edge. But the site diagrams emphasize views and green space where there are views and green space, but ignore the building faces and corridors facing parking structures. Another reason to reduce parking. The proposed shuttle from the Millbrae Transit Hub extends past the project site to the south side of Broadway. I'd request that the developer consider adding a shuttle stop at the downtown Burlingame train station, which might encourage people to stop by the avenue to have meals before or after work. Finally, I think we need more renderings from the freeway overpass and from the hillside so residents know what they're going to see on a day-to-day basis. There's only one that I could find from the top of the overpass on sheet ENT G212, but it doesn't really show the entire development extending to the left, and multiple renderings over the water really don't help. So to recap, I support the project. Burlingame should consider modernizing our codes to reduce required parking. The project should reduce proposed parking to the minimum required, redistribute and lower the office building massing, add a shuttle stop at the Burlingame train station, and provide more renderings. I actually got it under 3 minutes.
Good job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have Andy. Go ahead, Andy.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for taking my input. As a resident of Burlingame for almost 30 years, I want to put some input into this 1.5 million square foot project. It is located at the Broadway interchange of 101 and Caltrans, which we all know is often a major traffic congestion area. The Broadway Caltrans crossing has been seen of many train crashes and deaths as recently as last year. Building the Caltrans overpass is still not yet funded, and years away. This project will further aggravate the traffic congestion from the thousands of workers commuting to this project. And during lunch hour, many will be heading to restaurants using the Broadway interchange, adding to the lunch hour traffic jam. I'd like to note that there are 2 biotech projects under construction totaling 900,000 square feet, plus another 500,000 square feet proposed for a total of about 1.4 million square feet on top of this 1.5 million square foot project. I know the EIR is underway and for this project, and I hope it will address the traffic of this project and the other nearby biotech projects and the impact on the Broadway Caltrans crossing. Now, this project being 11 stories and over 200 square feet tall, I'm sorry, 200 feet tall, I feel is way oversized for this 12-acre waterfront parcel. As comparison, the waterfront Facebook project has about 760,000 square feet on some 18 acres of land and 5 to 8 stories and about 100 feet tall. I think better sizing for this project should be similar to the Facebook project. And so it probably should be more like about maybe about 1 million square feet. Also, this project should be timed to be built when the Broadway Caltrans overpass gets built. And so that when this project comes online, the Caltrans overpass could handle the flow of the additional traffic caused by this project. And in fact, I was even thinking that this project could even contribute maybe like $1 or $2 million into the funding of this of the Caltrans Broadway overpass, since a lot of the the workers will be using the Broadway overpass. I'd like to know that I'm not against this project. I think this project is a great project, but I just view that it is too massive and too tall for the location and on only 12 acres of the waterfront land. I think the impact on the traffic could be severe, and we'll find out more on the EIR, but I hope the commission seriously take the concerns raised and consider the suggestions discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any more hands raised, but I believe there were some public comment emails submitted, so I'll let Catherine go through those.
Okay, this is from Jean Gummery. Dear Planning Commissioners, help the proposed project for 1200 to 1340 Bayshore Highway are massive at best. This is not in keeping with the character of Burlingame. The traffic alone will be horrendous with about 1.5 million square feet of office and commercial. Please scale back this project immediately. Do not let the tax revenue influence your decisions. This is a gateway to our city. We do not need more development that dwarfs any view of usage of the bayfront. The amount of resources and utilities alone to manage this development will be detrimental to the city's infrastructure. Please, please, please do not be swayed by pretty pictures. Think of the impacts to traffic in our community and wildlife, flora, water, sewer, and electrical systems. Help, we need to stop this massive development that's engulfing our city now. Thank you, Jane Gummery, Burlingame resident for 30 years. The next public comment came from the Burlingame SFO Chamber of Commerce. Dear Planning Commission, Chair Gall and Planning Commissioners, over the past year, we at the Chamber of Commerce have had the pleasure of getting to know the applicant team at Divco West and learning about the proposed project Peninsula Crossing, which we believe has the potential to transfer the bayfront in a much needed way. It includes abundantly landscaped public open spaces in conjunction with a critical new section of Bay Trail and integrated public access paths, all contributing significantly to the community and enlivening a somewhat dilapidated area today. We believe the project will also play an important role in the broader business community, generating economic development for Burlingame and the region beyond, while also creating a place that Burlingame can be proud to offer its citizens and visitors alike. Further, the project's proposed sea level rise protections will provide long-term critical new resiliency for the Burlingame community. We encourage the Burlingame Planning Commission to please consider advancing this project forward to help bring renewal and transformation to our wonderful Bayfront. Sincerely, Susan Baker, President, CEO of the Burlingame SFO Chamber of Commerce. And the last letter is from the Marriott SFO Airport Waterfront. Dear members of the City Planning Commission, the SFO Waterfront Marriott submits its letter in support of Peninsula Crossing. I had the pleasure of viewing the revised plans and continue to be impressed by the project's commitment to our city and the conservation of the Bay Trail. I believe Peninsula Crossing has the potential to further transform the Burlingame Bayfront in a much needed way. It includes more than 5 acres of valuable public open space connected by a critical new quarter-mile section of Bay Trail and integrated public paths, contributing significant new amenities to Burlingame residents, workers, and hotel guests alike. We believe the project will play an important role in the business community, generating economic development for Burlingame and the broader region. Peninsula Crossing's proposed sea level rise protections will provide long-term critical new resiliency for the Burlingame community. The project will act as a center of economic activity for Burlingame by creating a best-in-class design, boosting business for nearby hotels and businesses while generating millions of dollars directly to the city. In addition to my role as general manager of the SFO Waterfront Marriott, I also live in Burlingame and raise both my kids here. I am thrilled this project will fill in 1,475 feet of missing Bay Trail, creating continuity along the city shoreline. Along with reimagining that the shoreline pathway, the project will prioritize pedestrian and bike access, adding green spaces and public plazas, and revitalize the Bayfront as a destination for city residents and visitors alike. We strongly support the applicants and welcome them to the community. Sincerely, Lisa Fong Kirshner, General Manager of the San Francisco Airport Waterfront Marriott. And that concludes the public comments that the city's received.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna take a stab at how to conclude this portion of our meeting tonight. So we have 2 items in front of us for action. One is the design review study and the other is the pre-application development agreement study session. So if we could maybe just quickly, if we have some questions, because this is going to be impact the EIR, anything in design review specifically for the applicants, if anyone on the commission has any questions or comments, I'd like to keep the applicant in this conversation just so we can get some feedback. Vice Chair Pfaff.
So are you asking, Chair Gall, are you asking for everything, site plan, landscaping, so anything about architecture? Okay, all right, you asked for it. So about the site plan, and some of this is, I've said this before, so it's going to be a repeater, but it looks like nothing's changed. Regarding on your phase 3, those are the north building and the north parking structure. There is close to no space between the sidewalk and this, what is, I guess, I don't know, 180 or 200 and something feet building. So straight up. And the trees, there are only 3 trees that I can see on the north parking structure. And I don't even know how they'd have any room to grow. They're just gonna hit that wall. So I actually, a few people have called in about the excessive parking, and I tend to agree, perhaps for another reason. But I think if that really needs to, first of all, we're not even really sure how an old Bayshore is going to look because that plan's not done yet. But if these folks are responsible for determining where the sidewalk goes, or what's happening to the roadway there. I would highly recommend that they figure out a way on those two buildings to make much more air space, maybe pull the building back on the Old Bay Shore highway side so that some greenery can go in and shape that roadway that we were hoping would look better. I don't see it looking better at all. I see it just too much, like right in your face. That's the one thing. Then regarding,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Chair Gall, were you looking for questions of the applicant right now, or?
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, I think questions of the applicant, if they have them, or comments, just so we can kind of combine them to wrap them up. I wanted to keep the applicant involved in some of the comments in case they had some feedback, but I don't want to draw this out all night too.
I don't know if that was a question or I mean, I asked it before, but I can see there was no change. So that is a design flaw, I find, that bothers me a lot. I also have a comment, or I don't know if I'm supposed to phrase it as a question, but I noticed that you have a lot of natives everywhere, and a shadow study has not been done, which is going to be really interesting. But native plants, a lot of those bushes and such, they're going to need sun. And I don't know, you might want to look at how those would be affected, their growth, if they're not getting sun for large portions of the day, which I suspect because of the direction the sun comes from. I also wanted to inquire about the way that, did you think about another way, I guess I want to say sort of organization or relationship that the buildings have to each other. You have 5 buildings, but let's just take the office building ones. They don't, I don't see sort of a rhyme or reason. I don't really see a cohesion. They don't have harmony to me. They don't, they're very tall. Everything seems quite maxed out to me. It's too much, but you almost could live with some height if they were slender, and if there was some beautiful relationship like between them, that they kind of had something connecting them, like, as I hate to use it again, but meta, those have some relationship. You can see they belong together. I'm having trouble seeing that here. I also wanted to ask my stuff here. Oh yeah, further on the parking structures, was there some thought given to I guess a green face rather than whatever these are, this material, just something that makes them blend better? And finally, I haven't seen a view corridor looking towards the hills, and I would like to see in the future your renderings look as if a drone, pretty much all of them. There are very few that look like somebody's standing on the ground in the back, and there are none from the other side that I could find from the Bayshore side looking the other direction, except in the green areas at the intersection where, you're calling it a plaza, but there's going to be a lot of traffic there. So I'm not sure how pleasant that will be, but I would really like to seek some consideration for on the ground or close to the ground, like a real pedestrian view rather than a drone view over the bay, looking at these several hundred feet, maybe 1,000 above the bay, looking at the bunch of buildings, and then towards the west, because that's not really what we're going to see unless we're hovering somehow. So I would like to see more realistic, what is reality rather than a beautiful rendering. And you've done a real beautiful job of renderings, but I am also in the art world and I know what renderings are for promotion. So it'd be really nice to see some more down on the ground renderings for us. Thank you. And shadow studies as well, real shadow studies.
Thank you.
Chair
Commissioner.
Gall, is it appropriate for us to respond?
Yeah.
Are you looking
go
for
ahead, go ahead.
responses? Yeah. So just at a very high level, I appreciate your comments and questions. And I think when we first acquired the site and thought about what the city envisioned here and tried to fit a 3.0 FAR project on the site, we came up with a number of the questions that you outlined. How do we carefully site this project and what can really fit here? And so I think I'll turn it over to Brian Giles from WRNS to just explain a little bit what went into the siting and sort of massing of the buildings, because it's not an afterthought by any means. If you don't mind, Brian.
No, not at all. Thanks, Virginia, and great to be here, guys. So yes, Commissioner, I will try to address that succinctly. I think the massing of the project is actually relatively simple in intent. And the site, as we see it, and as we've gotten to know it, has a lot of aspects that we think are very interesting. There is the bay side, which feels very natural, feels very elemental. You feel very connected to nature, certainly needs to be improved, as Virginia pointed out. But then Old Bay Shore is somewhere between being urban and being suburban. I think a street that's not exactly well defined. So there's that. And then there's the overall goal to grain the buildings from east to west, so that from Old Bay Shore to the bay, that's the primary view corridors. That's the primary understanding of the site. From the public realm standpoint, is that graining. The last thing we wanted to do was to make any kind of wall that was sort of parallel to Old Bay Shore or parallel to the bay edge. So the graining that you see, the long, thin buildings with the view corridors and the main public access from Old Bay Shore to the bay, moving sort of east to west or west to east, more or less, is the primary idea. And this is really all about knitting together the public realm, knitting together this very special place in Burlingame, where Broadway kind of hits the bay, hits Easton Creek. So how do we knit all of this together while keeping as much of a sense of openness from Old Bay Shore, from Broadway to the bay as we can, so that the kind of armature of understanding of that public realm is really about city to bay, city to bay, city to bay. So that's why the buildings are relatively compact in the kind of north-south direction. They are tall, going to the FA height limit for the most part. And that is so that we can get that over 5 acres of public open space, really connecting the town of Burlingame and Old Bay Shore to the bay.
Thank you. Commissioner Lowenthal, did you have your hand up?
I did, but Mr. Shiles just addressed what my point was. I mean, the overwhelming public narrative is the size of the building being too big. Not necessarily my opinion, but I wanted them to speak to that. And I think they just did a nice job explaining how the massing came about and that it was very intentful and not just a bunch of gigantic buildings plopped arbitrarily.
Thank you. And I have just a quick question, just as a point of reference. Do you know the height of the buildings at Burlingame Point compared to these buildings?
I don't off the top of my head. Anyone on our team?
Yeah, I do somewhere. Let me pull that up. And while I'm doing it, I mean, I think it's worth noting that Commissioner Pfaff, we did consider some of the views that you're referring to. You know, what are the sort of the realistic views from various points that people do have, you know, not just hovering over the bay. And so I'll show the height comparison and then I'll also show that view. 1 second.
I have the height totals if you need help with that, Virginia.
There's a height comparison of relevant buildings, comparing the stories and the height above grade that we're proposing. And I think one thing is the number, and then a second thing is what this enables, and that's really the public open space. And so I think I'll show you the view from the hills. But I think the height is very intentional in terms of what it allows for.
Okay.
Here we go. So here's the view of the project from up near Mills Canyon.
Mhm.
And I think you can see it's sort of largely in context. It's not something that's sort of suddenly blocking an individual's view.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant from the commission? Commissioner Say.
Yes, I just wanted to bring up again, something that I've brought up in the past. My concern a little bit is about the pedestrian scale of this development. I'm going to point out just maybe a couple of examples of where things could be maybe improved. If we look at I guess it's called sheet ENTG 218. It's one of the renderings, which is the aerial view from the Bay Trail looking south. I don't know how easy it is to pull that up, but it's the one that's showing this kind of the picnic grounds, the picnic lawn area. Let's see. Yeah, that one. I think it's that one. And there's some tables over to the right hand side, kind of sitting out in the sun. And I know that there's some umbrellas kind of around in some of the renderings. But for example, this particular area of where the tables are immediately below the kind of that podium level roof or deck balcony. And it's what, like 4 stories above, it looks like from proportionately. And it would seem that it could be nice to have some type of awning, some kind of built structure awning other than umbrellas, but something that could come out similar to how you have your airport view. There's the rendering of your that viewing platform, the airplane viewing platform, how there's that sense of scale there where one's sitting on a bench and you have the roof overhead. So I think it's like 3 or 4 renderings after this one. Yeah, this could work too. I have a different view, but that's what I'm mentioning there. Just having something over your head while you're sitting and resting instead of sitting out in the sun with, you know, a 4 or 5 story roof up above. I just feel like, you know, this is minor, but I think it will help a lot in terms of having one feel like a sense of a place and space when, you know, because we're talking so much about all the public spaces and how one can enjoy it and use it. And it seems like we could, or you could look at some opportunities where you can think about, you know, that pedestrian scale. The other thing that wasn't talked about tonight very much, but it was something I did bring up in my one-on-one Zoom discussion with the team, was traffic patterns and crosswalks and how does that all work as one approaches this, you know, fairly tall and large development once it's built out. That current road, Bayshore, or is that Bayshore? That road that currently leads to 101 is heavily filled with cars, multiple lanes of people trying to get on the freeway, off the freeway. I don't feel safe as a pedestrian currently to cross on that north side of the Broadway overpass. There's the pedestrian overpass, of course, but just to get over to the heart of your development there, concerned of how one would experience that, making their way over there with, kids, with pets, bikes and strollers and such, to enjoy this public space. So I just would like to see some more attention to what will happen here in terms of access to your development.
If I might just quickly in response to that, which is that we are working with Fair and Pierce in addition to the traffic design firm, in addition to civil engineer BKF, to really carefully redesign several intersections as part of our project. And that also includes newly designed high visibility crosswalks. So you can see those kind of highlighted here in yellow, because I think you're exactly right. There's going to be increased pedestrian traffic at this intersection, and it's a major intersection. So it's not just the patterns of the crosswalks, it's the timing of the lights and sort of all of the details to ensure that that's a safe place to be a pedestrian or a cyclist.
Yes, great. I don't think we saw too much of it in today's presentation, but maybe at some future point we'll see more of that in greater detail. But anyway, so my main point, I think it's a beautiful design. I would love for it to be all built sooner than later. But I'm a little bit concerned about kind of the height of this development and the tightness of the corridors and how one as a human uses the space coming through in and around the development. Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about how we arrive at the parking counts? I recognize that it's not just we, the city, said you must have X number of cars and you've done it. You're making a choice on how much parking you're providing on site. So, in response to some, there's been a few people who have said the garages are too big and you're over parking and everybody should be using public transportation anyway. So you as a business person, how are you making said decisions? Because the cost of a parking spot doesn't necessarily make you money like rental area.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. We are parked at the lowest ratio that we think can be leased, frankly. So we're investing heavily in a TDM plan that, Kelly outlined in the beginning, some of the things that includes. It includes things like subsidized transit passes, survey to encourage other ways of getting to work. We have really kind of amazingly nicely designed bike rooms with showers and storage. And we're working through exactly how many of the bike spots are e-bike spots, because that's an increasingly popular way of getting to work. So we're really trying to incentivize people getting their bikes and pedestrians. We talked some about the commute.org shuttle. We've been working with John Ford on exactly how the routes are going to go and what that's going to look like in a couple of years, but we've committed to funding a shuttle that's coming every 15 minutes directly to the project site to Millbrae, BART, and Caltrain. So, and frankly, we picked the site in the first place because it's really close to 2 Caltrain stations. It's close to Millbrae, BART, and then the vehicle access itself is right on and off the highway. So it's actually minimizing traffic in city streets. Mm-hmm. All of that said, it's a somewhat suburban condition, and we use kind of market data to tell us what the sort of how low can we possibly go on the parking condition. And so that's where we're at a ratio blended. It's about 2.37 stalls and per thousand. And that's sort of as low as we think is possible just from market demand. And I think the last piece on that is we are encouraging EV charging stalls as well. So although we'd love everyone to get to work in public transit, those driving who are using electric cars, all the better from our perspective.
So then who's driving market forces? Is there, we've heard others say, well, if I don't provide parking, the bank's not going to give me money. How is that working from your perspective of being able to choose between 2 and 2.3 and 2.5?
Yeah, it's a good question. At Divco, we really value tenant relationships. We try to stay really close to what tenants in the market are looking for. And so we have, regular conversations with tenants that are out there that are leasing space. We also are informed by the brokerage community. So it's really about the demand of the eventual tenants of the buildings that we anticipate. It's not really what the banks will finance, because turns out they won't finance much right now. Parking notwithstanding.
So now are you doing studies on any of your other developments to say, well, we said 2.3 at this one location and we're now 5 years out and we're finding that we've got a lot of empty spaces, or we're not? Because what I'm afraid of is a lot of times we make policies, but we don't always have data that inform, unless it comes from you guys who are tracking it later downstream.
I mean,
to say my building is full or it's not.
No, it's good question. And we do look at data of real buildings, and really how much parking is being committed to in each lease. It's also one of the cool things about our project, and the phasing we talked about early, is we have 3 buildings and 2 garages. That's very intentional, so that the garages have less of an impact on the site. It's also intentional in terms of leasing flexibility. So the center building and south garage are actually going to be, center building and south building are actually going to be somewhat underparked with only the south garage built. We could but say we're suddenly in a world where e-bikes take off and everyone's just biking to work. I would love that. I hate cars. Everyone's biking to work, then maybe we don't build as big of a garage on the north for the 3rd phase. So I think that, something about this phasing flexibility, that's really critical to the project.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry that I was so parking focused, but it just seems like.
No, it's an important issue. I appreciate it.
Your garage is too big.
Yeah.
And why are you doing it? So I think it's important that the public understand what drives that.
Unintended.
So then I wanted to piggyback just on my last little piece here. I wanted to piggyback on Commissioner Say's comment regarding the structure kind of thing. And, thinking about the umbrellas and some of the public areas, like where the cafes are going to be. And you're saying we're going to have outdoor seating, we're going to have outdoor eating areas. And as I thought more about it and I was looking at that image, the umbrella thing sounds great in a residential scale in my backyard. But as you start to think about how many people you're going to be having and seating and trying to shade and make comfortable, I would maybe encourage that those outdoor spaces are opportunities, because, I'd love a great sunny day every day, but we don't have them every day. We have a combination of wind, which you've been talking about, how you guys are addressing with a wind consultant, but, being able to provide a temperate outdoor opportunity and being able to bring down that human scale, as Commissioner Say said too, I think there's opportunities in those little individual pocket areas when you've had an opportunity to spend more time with it. I realize these are big buildings and I'm asking you to design a little space. But those are going to be, I think, opportunities as we go further down the line to refine the program. And those outdoor space areas. The umbrellas look great in the rendering, but I think that it's a maintenance thing downstream. And it may be a more permanent style of structure may play out for both you as a maintenance piece, but also providing a little bit more to the pedestrian user at that area. So
that's a good comment. And I think as we think through kind of the nooks and crannies of the site, and areas that are for human scale and areas that are for larger group gatherings, thinking through the kind of built trellis concept is a good one. So thank you.
No, because during our previous conversation, I spent a lot of time talking about those touch points with where the cafes are and those little places that I want to spend time in. granted, that's not where you're selling your, making your money and selling rentable space, but those are going to be key areas that are great little jewel benefits to our community that will make us want to go down there and use it as part of the greater community and not just feel like it's a campus.
Yeah, no, and that's an absolutely critical part of the project. So thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands, but I have one quick, just a comment about those community benefits like the retail space. I appreciate that you've got a couple of cafe spots in there, but I would encourage you to even look at more retail space if you could. The people will come if you build something for them, and it doesn't have to be a restaurant. You could have a retail space and maybe they're renting bikes, or maybe there's a news stand or something, but something else to get people's interest to go there. I'm just not 100% sure people are going to go there just because there's an open plaza. So just something to look at, and it's only a comment. Okay, so I think we can move on. I don't know, aren't taking any action on the design review study. Is that correct? This is just for information.
We're not taking any action. If you want to, I'm not sure if the planning commission wanted to have more discussion. I mean, we do need to close the public hearing. You could discuss any more comments that you have. You could go into more details on the community benefits. If you feel that you've done that already, you could just close the public hearing and wrap up the item as well.
Unless anyone has anything they'd like to add for community benefit, but we can also get into that with the pre-application development part, right? And when
we envision doing this essentially together. You can separate it if you want to bifurcate the discussion a little bit to focus it. That's absolutely fine as well. But you can discuss them in tandem if you think that would be helpful. Because
I just didn't want to confuse everything. I mean, I think we've done pretty well on the design review study, so I guess we can discuss that as well. But I think that I guess we should probably just close the public hearing at this point, and because I think we hammered out most of the design review study stuff. So I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we'll just, as a commission, discuss the pre-application development agreement and what we think we should offer to the city council, I guess. Vice Chair Pfaff, you had your hand up?
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to be asking for that part. So the what is expected or whatever. I just can't even imagine designing this with half an eastern channel or whatever creek. I don't find half a creek beneficial particularly, and there needs to be a way. They need to, I think, be thinking about that. It's almost like offering half a creek. That's not, I find that a very partial benefit. And so that's, at least for me, that would be really important to clean that up somehow. Don't know how. Yeah.
If I could add to that, I don't think it's half a creek. I think it's just the phasing, and I'm uncomfortable with a 20-year phase.
Yeah.
I think that if maybe even just 10 years, and you could, kind of like a baseball contract, have an option for a few more years or something. But I think that I'd like to see this move forward. That's why my specific question to Virginia was how long are these going to take? And, it's hard to say, but if you gave them 2 to 3 years on each phase, that gives you 6 to 9 years. So 10 years, I mean, I get it. It's a big project, and phasing it's going to make it easier for them to build. So if they want to phase it, I'm okay with that. But I just think that 20 years is too long. Commissioner Camerado?
Well, that's why I mentioned the possibility of having 3 different parcels. So, they don't have to do all 3 phases, right? They could sell off a phase or 2 of the phases and just do 1 phase. Now, that's up to them and how they want to proceed. It has nothing to do with us. But I think what we need to do is understand how long it takes to build one of these projects. And that's why I mentioned the Facebook campus, and Kevin mentioned the park. So let's look at what we already have in line. Well, let's look at what we've already done, and let's look at how those projects have moved forward. Obviously, the Facebook campus came out in 2012, which was the worst part of the one of the economic downfalls that we had. And let's kind of look and strategize of something we've already done. We don't have to recreate the wheel. It's been created for us at some other level with other commissioners and other city council members. So maybe look at what we've done before. I would say phase it at 7, give them 7 years, and then give them an option of 3 for a maximum of 10. I wouldn't go to 10 and give them like 5 more years. I mean, that's just in my purview, because they're always going to ask for more in the end. And we're going to have to end up coming in the middle somewhere. So I think I would really like to look at how we did the other projects if we could, just to get some baseline of what it is. And then again, as Commissioner Gall mentioned, getting a really good idea of how long are these projects and how long will they take to build. I think we know, we have some certainty. DIVCO is a very exceptional construction company. They know what they're doing. And so we can even look at how long Park has taken, right? We're all in the community. We're all looking at how long that's taken.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Haran?
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of comments based on everything I've heard. I actually like the project a lot. I like the design. I like the public amenities. I think my concern is the phasing as well. Not so much the phasing of the buildings themselves, but of the community benefits. I would propose that they figure out a way to deliver all the community benefits as part of phase 1. So the full Bay Trail and Easton Creek rehab. Otherwise, we may never get it if the economic conditions don't allow the phases to be complete and we're stuck with kind of a half finished public amenity. I'd even be willing to trade off on the airport viewing amenity. It actually concerns me from a safety and security standpoint to have that on top of the parking garage. Maybe there's some negotiation for that. I am also concerned about the traffic. I know we'll have a separate study on the traffic, but the 3,400 cars is a lot of cars. I did some quick math. It means like 23 cars a minute for 2.5 hours each morning and 23 cars a minute for 2.5 hours each afternoon. That's a lot of cars going through those intersections in addition to what's already there. So the overall project is, I think really good. It just feels 10% too big. I think if the buildings were 10% lower, 10% less square footage, 10% fewer cars with those amenities, it's really a fantastic project. So
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, no, I like the project a lot too. I feel like, with the sea level rise, the amenity and the restoration and the bayfront part or the path, I think that, there's a lot going into this before we even get our first building. I do agree with the phasing, and I think it's maybe just the fact that it's a cut and dry diagram at the moment. I think that maybe that line needs to move a little further, not on the edge of the creek, but a little further into phase 3, so that you're right. I don't really want to be standing on the phase 1 side looking at an unfinished other side of the creek for 10 years. So I think that that's something that's negotiable with them. I don't think that, and I think that they're going to have to knock down those buildings. They're going to be spending months with trucks going in and out, bringing dirt to raise that up 7 to 10 feet. And it's going to take time for that 7 to 10 feet of dirt to settle in and be then usable and buildable. So, there's a good amount of time where those are going to be lots. And I think that if they can, if they can work on that Easton Creek restoration as part of the phase 1 on both sides, it's still going to be a fence on the other side while we wait for the building to happen. Okay. But at least if we can get up over the edge a little bit and get the plantings going, both sides will mature and age in a similar fashion instead of being totally different. I think the paths, on either end are going to be a work in progress regardless. The path to the north is just there. It's not a nice path. It's just there. And they too are going to have to do the sea level rise remediation at some point in time. They're not going to suddenly raise their land 7 to 10 feet too, so that DIVCO's path can be done 100%. So it could take years before that connection point, finishes up. And similarly, I don't think we have the connection point on the city side on the south. So regardless, those two on either side are going to take time and, a couple different iterations before they get finished. But I think the promise to open it up as early as possible so that we can use the Bay Trail, even if it's not in its finished state, it does bring community benefit. And I think if they do the restoration of the Eastern Creek early on, that gets us a good looking benefit for quite a while too, before those buildings go in. So I think there's a lot to be said here in these benefits, more than we've really seen in some of the others. When you look down the street at the one by the Marriott, we're not getting near the same community benefits out of that project because it doesn't have any touch points with anything. They're providing a small little restaurant too, and a plaza in the middle of the street. Whereas these guys are really providing a top-notch project and 5 acres worth of open space that I think, in a prime spot. It's not in the middle of nowhere. So I think it's going to be a good project, and I hope that they can keep the momentum going. And I would love to see it done because those properties out there are dilapidated and they're just sitting there waiting to be done. So,
okay, Commissioner Lowenthal.
Yeah, thank you. I'm mostly concerned about the length of time of the project. My gut instinct is this is going to be a very good benefit to our community as a whole, but we need it built. I'm concerned that this is one parcel, but it's split into 3 separate ownership groups, if you see that in one of the diagrams. And so I'm very concerned of things stopping. Maybe to Chair Gall's point, the development agreement does need to be capped. 10 years sounds good, but maybe it's commensurate with each phase. You get 3 years for each phase. When you complete one, then you can get another 3 years with a cap of 10. I'm so concerned that you develop the first phase, and all of a sudden we're staring at dirt lots for 12 years. Even with the public benefit. I mean, I'd love to go on the Bay Trail, but walking by that southern section of the Bay Trail that actually just opened up was bad for a long time. I'm concerned that could be very similar. So I don't know. I think the development agreement capping that at a much more conservative level, and maybe having it tied to the actual construction phases, is more in our best interest as a community.
Yeah. Well, and again, the point's been made that those are just 3 simple sections and 3 simple blocks. Commissioner Rand had a great point that maybe the whole Bay Trail development becomes part of phase 1. I think that's a really good idea. Problem's going to be that usually your hardscape and your softscape are the last things that happen because you've got so much crap, if you will, over the whole job, and all the heavy equipment and everything gets destroyed. So we'll leave that up to the applicant, and I trust that they can come up with a good plan. And but I think we're all in agreement that 20 years is too long. It needs to be scaled back somehow, and whether it's by phase or as an overall project, I don't know. Well, maybe we'll just pass that off to the city council. Okay. Any other discussion on this, the pre-application development agreement? No, then I'm going to close out this item. And we don't have a motion to make. Is that correct, Scott?
Nope, you're good. That was great. We'll pass along the feedback to the city council to aid them in negotiations. So thank you very much.
Okay. So 5 minutes to 11, we got the commissioners' reports and directors' reports. I see that there's 2 FYIs. Does that come under commissioners' reports?
Actually, the FYIs are under director's reports. So if you want to first check on commissioners, see if there are any reports for commissioners.
None that I know of, but I'm one of 7. So anyone? No? Okay. So we'll go with the FYIs.
So for director's reports, 2 FYIs, 1549 Los Montes Drive and 1144 Balboa Avenue. Changes to previously approved design review projects.
Would anyone like to pull either of these items? Vice Chair Pfaff?
Yeah, I would like to pull the one on Monte. What's the street?
Los Montes?
Los Montes. Yes, I
And
would.
could you give some guidance as to your reason?
There are many changes that each one alone, maybe certain ones aren't so bad, but it's all of them taken cumulatively. I think it'd be better to look at it again.
Okay. All right. And everyone is okay on the Balboa then, I assume. All right. Well, I can see that everyone's feeling about the same way I am. It's a little before 11, but I think that's it unless we have anything else. Kevin, nothing?
I'll just report City Council regular meeting on February 6th. There was an item introduced, well, it wasn't introduced formally, is for discussion, a discussion of a smoking ban pilot program in the Broadway Commercial District. It's something that the Merchants Group had suggested and requested, so the City Council has given direction to develop a pilot ordinance to test it out for, I think it was 6 months, just to see how that goes. It would just be for the Broadway Commercial District and possibly wrap around the side streets for the commercial areas, but that'll come back at a later date.
Okay, thank you. All right, if that is it, I'm going to bid you all adieu, and this meeting is adjourned at 10:57.
Thank you.
See you all in a couple weeks.
Everyone.